Start, sir.
So, good afternoon. I welcome all the participants to this webinar today. I recognize presence of WIRC Vice Chairman CA Vishal Doshi. We are also expecting Central Council member CA Jai Shaira to join us from Surat. And we have 3 learned faculties with us. CA Hiram Sheikh, she'll start with the first session on soft skills. Then we have Mr. Rajkumar Srivastav, and he's going to talk to us on fraud investigation. Again, a very sought after topic after COVID or during this period as well. And then we have Ronak Doshi, CA on MLI. So, friends, like in line with the new guidelines on webinar by ICAI, WIRC also, each region can conduct only 5 programs in 15 days. And each event has to be of 2 to 3 hours and each speaker 1 hour. And accordingly, we have planned 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th. So Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. And on 6th, we again meet from 2 to 5. But it is a unique, different type of thing. We are doing a panel. And there we will also have Vice President of ICAI, Nihar Bhai, who will be addressing us. We'll have the immediate past President of ICAI, Praful Chhajet. And then we'll go on to a panel discussion where we have a moderator who is Venkat of My CFO. He will moderate the panel. And we have 4 CFOs from 4 large organizations. And we're going to talk about surviving and thriving through COVID. So that is the plan for the next 5 days. Now I request Vishal Bhai to give his opening remark. Vishal Bhai, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Murtuza Bhai. Good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I would like to thank our speakers for today's sessions. CA Hiram Sheikh, CA Rajkumar Srivastav, and CA Ronak Doshi for accepting our invitation and consenting for this webinar. When I look at the topics for today, I think all the 3 are independent of each other. And though I'm not an expert in GST, I think this is something which we would say what as a mixed supply or composite supply, unbundled jo bhi hai. I am not a very technical person on GST, but you know, when I looked at the topics, I found that each of the 3 are very, very different from each other, but each one is very important from its individual capacity as well. So communication skills that we are going to have as the first speaker, CA Hiram Sheikh, verbal and non-verbal communication. I feel again, you know, this is very, very important. Being professionals, how we present ourselves, how we communicate. You know, many times, to be very honest, I also get pretty upset the way sometimes some mails are exchanged. You know, the language that is used or the way the mail is drafted. These friends can be a very, very small things that happen in our day-to-day life. But you can also reflect back upon that, you know, when you have received a mail, that that how it becomes difficult for you to focus on the mail because the way it is drafted, the way it flows. And so these communication skills as professionals become very, very important because we are interacting with so many, I would say, persons, maybe regulators, non-regulators, professionals, even our clients, big CFOs of big companies, and so all these things, communication become very important. And I definitely, I am sure that Madam would cover that in the communication, verbal as well as non-verbal. The second topic is about fraud investigation, recovery options. And well, friends, we are all aware of whatever has been happening with respect to the financial market, or I would say the financial statements, banks, frauds, NPAs in the last 6 months to 1 year. I am not going back to the Satyam days, because that is even in the current we know that what is impacting, and wherever there are these frauds, the first question it comes that fraud se to rupe chale gaye, abhi kya hoga, how do we recover that money, because these are all public money. And we have a very knowledgeable speaker in Mr. Rajkumar Srivastavji, who would take us through about what can be the possible recovery options when we talk about frauds. And the third topic is about overview of the multilateral instruments. Friends, when we talk of cross-border taxation, cross-border business planning, I think MLI has become very important and relevant when we talk of the tax planning and tax structuring as far as the international transactions are concerned. And let me tell you that when we talk of the COVID situation also, that there are so many companies which are planning to come into India. Maybe India is also now exploring to go outside and maybe fill up some vacuum that might have been created by China or other countries also. And so there would be a lot of cross-border transactions and taxation issues that would be coming up. And I believe that maybe multilateral instrument would definitely be a very important aspect or component of that. And we have an expert speaker in CA Ronak Doshi, who would be taking us through the MLIs. And I am really looking forward for a very interesting 3 hours session that we are going to have today. Thanks everybody, and wish you a very happy learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal Bhai, for telling us in detail about all the 3 speakers and the program. Now I would request our Central Council member CA Jay Chaira to please give his opening remarks for today's session. Jay Bhai, over to you.
A very good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, my compliments to the team WIRC led by CA Lalit Bajaj, team Vikasa led by CA Vishal Doshi, and my dear friend Murtuza. And while Vishal Bhai was talking about the 3 topics, like these topics being unrelated, I was also wondering about it. What should be the logic of the various 3 topics being there? Of course, one of the logic may be these days you have remixed versions, but more than that, what interestingly I could find out is the first topic is about skills. We require skills, we require knowledge, we require aptitude, we require attitude. While we are discussing this time, student friends, I'll tell you one very important and interesting thing. While we were discussing with the president ICI this year, we were telling that while there are a number of committees for our members, our chartered accountant, there is only one board of studies for the students. And I think we require doing something more for the students. We require doing something, the board of studies is more working on the technical subjects, but on the skill side, we require doing something more for the students. And our visionary president, C. Atul Gupta, he immediately took up the point and he added up a new committee, new board. Now we have 2 boards. One is Board of Studies Academics. We have Board of Studies Skill Development. So Board of Studies Academics looks after your subjects like income tax, GST, audit, and like that. And Board of Studies Skills Development, that looks after this communication skills, presentation skills, and soft skills and other management skills, including delegation, negotiation, and like that. And this year, now it is something unfortunate because of COVID, we could not start with our national events, some students' events in a physical mode. But when we were actually planning, we wanted to change the national programs totally. Friends, you must have observed that for the last few years, whenever you go to students' programs, you have more and more topics on audit and income tax and like that. But this year, we wanted to introduce Leadership Summit for our CA students. And we are very clear that in the students' programs organized by the Student Skills Enrichment Board, we will not include any of the topics which are covered in the curriculum, but we'll give a new flavor. We'll talk about the global trends, we'll talk about the international business, we'll talk about communication, presentation, and leadership, and we'll talk about all these things. So anyway, the first topic, I find it really very interesting, that is regarding communication, right? And somehow means I am more interested in such type of topics. But as I said, this is about skills. This is about skills. And the second and third topic we'll talk about fraud investigation. Today, the institute has started up on a virtual mode with a course known as FAFD, that is fraud detection, that is regarding forensic audit and fraud detection. And friends, believe me, this topic is so important that the moment we launched the course, within a single minute, the batch was full. I'm telling 1 minute. After 5 minutes, a few chartered accountants called me, "Ke yaar, ye batch khul nahi raha." I inquired the officer and he said, "Sir, within 1 minute, the batch was full." Now you can understand how important it is. It's a very forward-looking subject, fraud detection. Up till now, we are talking about audit as true and fair, but the world is changing now from true and fair to true and correct. There is a transition. And rather than the traditional role of an auditor, in the coming times, fraud detection, forensic audit, these are going to be something very important. So I must compliment WIRC for selecting such a futuristic subject. And of course, one subject should be from the core things, our core domains. So one on skill, one on futuristic basis, and one core. And taxation has always been the core for us chartered accountants. And of course, in taxation also, they have come out with a very interesting topic, MLI. Well, now the first topic, I think you are ready with it, communication, verbal and non-verbal. And I'm sure the faculty is going to discuss with you that how, along with verbal, non-verbal is something very important. How 90% of the communication happens by way of gestures, postures, body language, signboard, right? Even logos, right? So non-verbal communication, I'm sure that's going to be something very interesting. So rather than continuing, I would prefer to listen to the faculty on communication. Thanks a lot once again, and once again compliments to team WIRC for such a wonderful program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sparing your valuable time and giving us your blessings and your kind words. Now I would request CA Kamlesh Kothari to introduce the first speaker. Kamlesh bhai, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Murtuza bhai, for giving me opportunities to introducing today's first session speaker, CA Hiram Sheikh. And let me congratulate WRC team and compliments, and especially Murtuza under the chairmanship of Lalit Bajaj for for arranging such webinars which are useful for the students and the members. Today's speaker first session is CA Hiram Sheikh. She will going to speak on the verbal communication and non-verbal communication skills. Hiram is a chartered accountant. Along with she is holding the master degree in the commerce. She is also holding the IFRS diploma holder from the ACCA United Kingdom, and a certified image consultant and soft skills trainer from the Image Consulting Business Institute (ICBI), accredited by SQA, that is a Scottish Qualifications Authority. Hiram is a certified trainer by NABET, means National Accreditation Board for the Educational and Training, constituent board of Quality Council of India. Hiram is a managing partner of the Freelance Advisors Private Limited, a business consultancy service provider. She is a co-founder of the RAS Consultants, an image consultancy and soft skills training firm. Hiram has more than 10 years of work experience in a corporate environment with one of the top CA firms. Her transition to an entrepreneurial role was strongly aided by her passion to create the job opportunities. So I welcome all the three speakers, and especially first sessions. Now it's over to Hiram Sheikh to teach us on enlighten on the verbal and non-verbal communication skills.
Thank you, Kamlesh bhai. Yeah, thank you, Kamlesh bhai. And Hiram, I really appreciate the fact that also in the month of Ramadan you accepted our invitation and come and speak. Thank you for that. And I would also like to congratulate you for getting appointed or nominated on the Women's Empowerment Committee of WIRC. With that, over to you. Now we can share your slides and start your session. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you everyone. Thank you Kamlesh Kothari for your kind introduction. And firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank WIRC of ICAI for giving me this opportunity to present on this topic of communication skills. Jay Cheria for giving me this platform and allowing me to present on this topic. Yeah. So hello friends, I hope everyone, most of you all have joined by now. Yes. So let me start with the topic. So as you all are aware, the topic for the day is communication skills. So I'll be covering three important aspects of it, say verbal communication, non-verbal communication, and written communication. So again, I would want to reiterate this or say this. This session has to be a very interactive one. So if I understand you all cannot speak because you all are muted, but there is a question box on the right hand side. So you all can post your questions, your queries. There's a question over there. No voice. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are audible, Hiram.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hiram, you are audible. You can carry on, please. And there
Okay,
are more than 350 participants in the opening. Please carry on.
Okay, no problem. So, I want this to be very interactive. So you all can post your queries over there, and I'll be asking you few questions. Just to start, I'll say something, and I would want you to understand and tell me if whether I'm saying I'm lying or I'm saying the truth. So if I am saying, you all say I'm feeling very hot. It's so hot in here. So will you all believe me? Will you all like am I saying the truth? Will you all trust me on this? I'll do it once again. I'm feeling so hot. I would want you all to please post something. Okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm getting responses. Yes, yes, you all are right, because I'm yeah, because I'm saying I'm feeling hot, but I'm pretending as if I'm feeling cold. So whatever I say, but if my body language doesn't complement it, my non-verbal part doesn't complement it, you all will not believe me, you all will not trust me. So hold on on this point about verbal and non-verbal communication. We'll cover it in the coming slides. So what is the objective of this session? The major objective of this program is to close the gap between whenever you communicate, you always get the desired result. So what is this communication and desired response? As in, you have to come again, there has to be a response. Yes, yes. Whenever we communicate, whenever we as human being, we keep on communicating 24 hours like of our being. That is because even if we are not talking, we keep on communicating. Our silence also speaks. We speak through our body language as well. But when we communicate, we want a desired response. We want a favorable response. So to get a favorable response, we have to communicate in such a way that the opposite person understands us. Okay. So I'll take you ahead. Okay. So what is communication? So this is a definition about communication. Communication is the transmission of an idea or a feeling so that the sender and the receiver share the same understanding. Communication is not a mysterious process. It takes place when the ideas from your mind are transferred to another's and arrive intact, complete, and coherent. So I would say communication is more an art than a science, because it has to be learned, it has to be developed, and science is already there, but communication we can learn it through daily practice and the daily application. In communication, we day in and day out, we try to express our feelings, express our ideas, and we send it to a receiver, to an opposite person, and we want a favorable reply from them. By looking at this slide, you'll be able to understand. Then when we are a sender, we encrypt a message, our feelings, our thoughts through verbal and non-verbal communication, and we send it to the receiver. So the opposite person, he understands it, and then he gives a response. The response can be reaction or response. It can be positive or negative. If we get a negative reply, then our communication has failed. If we get a positive reply, then of course our communication has succeeded. So again, communication is exchange of information. Okay. So what is the difference what distinguishes good and effective communication from its poor and ineffective counterpart? The desired response, feedback, and result. So if you're not getting desired response, desired good feedback, or good results, the communication has failed. So we as chartered accountants, everyone has to learn communication skills, but we being chartered accountant, now we are competing with IIMs, ISB is at workplace. So now communicate, as our institute has also identified communication being a very important part of our curriculum as well. They are giving us GMCS trainings and all. So there they are trying to inculcate this skill in us, and wherein we can compete not just technically but also through our communication skills with them. Type of communication, as you all already know, I'll be covering verbal communication, which is about spoken words, dialogues, telephonic conversations, face-to-face interactions, presentations, meetings, conferences, debates, etc. Second is non-verbal communication. It talks about body language, paralanguage, and the third one is written communication. It's about letters, emails, text messages. So I'll be covering one slide altogether. So yeah, as the earlier example which I've given, which I was saying, okay, I'm feeling hot, and I was pretending as if I'm feeling cold. So just to explain it further, we communicate in 3 different ways. The words we use, the tone of our voice, and the body language. So you all have observed me totally, like not just the words I was speaking, but also the body language and the actions and the tone of my voice. So communication comes as a complete package altogether. It's not just the words we use. So as Mr. Jay Cheria earlier told, communication, non-verbal communication is 93% of our total communication, and only 7% is the words. So out of 93%, 38% is the tone of our voice, and 55% is the body language. So we place lot of emphasis on our words. We try to learn new things. Of course, we have to learn, but we are very particular about using difficult words and try to increase our vocabulary. But we at times forget or don't put much emphasis on our body language or the non-verbal part of communication, which is 93%. So, and when we are on telephone, 14% is the words and 86% is the tone of voice. So we have to be very careful about the non-verbal part of communication. Okay. So let me conclude on this slide by saying it's not just what we say, it's how we say that communicates. So just for an example, if I say if I'm not happy with someone's work, and if I say, okay, yes, you did I'm not happy with your work, and then I smile and I laugh. So the opposite person or my employee or my client or my service provider, they will not understand whether I'm actually not happy or I'm just pretending. So my body language or my tone, everything, of course I cannot be harsh or I cannot be rude, but it has to come together and give a same communication. It cannot be contradicting each other. So the opposite person won't trust me, and I won't get the desired result then. Okay. So what is verbal communication now? So how can we improve our verbal communication, or what things we should keep in mind while communicating verbally? So first thing is accuracy. Accuracy is of paramount importance. Why accuracy is of paramount importance, tell you. If we are quoting some facts and figures, if we are quoting some sections, and so that time we have to be 100% accurate. Say for example, in case of air traffic controller, they have to be 100% accurate while giving directions and all. But even if the accuracy is 99%, this might lead to huge disasters. So accuracy is very important. The next comes simple words. Always try to use simple words. Please understand, English is not our first language. Although we have been learning English through our school, college, and our professional exams, we have been appearing exams in English. But again, understand, everyone, the person you are talking to might not understand English the way you understand. So always try to use simple words. Repeat here, I mean, you yourself don't keep on repeating things. Just when you are through with your communication, if you're talking something important, always ask the opposite person what he has understood out of it. say in case you're into practice and you've got a staff under your, or you're in job, you've got a team to handle, and you're giving some instructions to them, and in the end, if you don't ask them to repeat, and if I'm not sure if they have understood exactly the instructions, and at the end the results might vary to what you have instructed. So in order to avoid this in the end, initially when you're communicating or you're giving instructions, that time please ask them to repeat or clear out what they have understood. Next is accent. So this is typical to Indians. I've seen people, they try to mask their accent with someone else's of a foreigner's accent. So, but I would say this is not required. Accent is the flavor of the conversation. Like if you don't carry your typical style while talking, then the conversation will get boring. Because if everyone talks in a monotonous voice, then it's more robotic than just conversing or just enjoying a conversation. So it's always advisable to talk clearly and in your own accent. State of mind. Whenever we speak, it has to be, I'll say it has, there has to be clarity, there has to be conviction, and there has to be confidence. So always speak with clarity, conviction, and confidence. Clear with your thoughts. Conviction means you have to be very sure what you're talking. You yourself have to be sure, then only you will be able to communicate it properly. And third one is all confidence. So you have to be confident all the time when you speak, because if you're low in confidence, the opposite person will not be interested, they will not hear it, and then of course communication will fail. Speed of delivery. Say if I talk too slowly, you all will lose the interest, and if I am very fast, then you all won't be able to understand a bit of it. So I purposely did this just because to make you all understand. If we talk very slow, it is quite possible that the opposite person again will lose interest in the conversation. They will not understand what exactly you're talking about. And if you're very fast, again they will tend to like not understand only what exactly you're talking about. So it is always advisable to use 120 to 140 words per minute. And yes, this can be developed with practice. Okay. And if you all have any questions, so please post it in the question box. In the end, we'll be taking all the questions, or maybe whatever time is there, we'll be taking the questions. So now, non-verbal types of non-verbal communication. Non-verbal, as you all understand, it is 93% of the total communication pie. So non-verbal carries a big importance, and there are many concepts in this. And before going ahead, I will just say about, like, we as human beings, we tend to make judgments all throughout. Whenever we meet any person, the first thing we start judging them even before they talk. So we are like, we kind of judge their education qualification, their financial status, their marital status, and whether they are interesting or not interesting, whether I like them or I don't like them. Everything we kind of judge just in like first 2-3 seconds of seeing a person. So so as we judge others, so others will also be judging us. So the way when I first started this thing, and you all must have attended, like you all must have joined, oh, this is the speaker, so you all must have formed some imagery about me even before I started talking. So everyone has got this habit of judging others. So to make a good impression, good first impression about ourselves, we have to be, first thing, we have to be very presentable, and we have to always be careful and be mindful of our non-verbal communication, because even before speaking, people judge us on our non-verbal part. So I'll give you this, various pointers on what is non-verbal communication and how can we improve it. Before going ahead directly, what is I'll give you an example again. Say there are two, as we are chartered accountants, I'll say, let us take an example of two newly qualified chartered accountants, Rahul and Raj. They have been selected for interview in a big MNC, say Google. They have been selected for an interview at a Google. So now they are, you all are the interviewers and they are interviewee, and now you all will judge them on the various aspects of non-verbal communication. And let me see what you all understand about their confidence level or the non-verbal part of them. Posture, movement, gesture, and facial expressions. So Rahul again is coming, is mesmerized with the whole concept. Yes, I've selected for this Google interview. He enters the premises. He's well prepared with his technical skills. Both Rahul and Raj both are well prepared because of course they have cleared the exams and now they are good through with the skills, with their technical skills. But now the test comes when they are to see whether they are aware of their non-verbal part of communication. So now Rahul enters the premises. It's huge. Now he goes. His posture is a bit drowsy, and his movements are slow. His facial expression seems to be very nervous. He heads towards the reception to ask her where should he go for the interview. But now the reception, he tells something to the reception. She is not able to understand clearly, or she's not able to hear clearly. So she gives a stern look at Rahul. So Rahul feels bad about it. He doesn't like it, and he feels low about himself. So then somehow he now communicates, and then the lady guides him to the place where he's supposed to sit for his turn. Then comes Raj. Again, Raj is a newly qualified, but Raj is aware of his body language. Raj is aware how to be present in such a situation. So Raj goes with confidence and he talks to the lady, and the receptionist smiles back at him. Raj's confidence is alleviated, and now he's feeling good about himself. Then the lady guides him to the reception area. So just by their initial interaction, their confidence level has changed. So now I'll see on the next point. Sense of territoriality or ideal distance. So now, because of COVID-19, we have been hearing about social distancing, but this study has been always there. So initially, like the study says, like we as humans, like with our friends or our relatives, our territoriality or distancing is less, and with our colleagues it's different, and then in social scenarios it is different. So we have to be mindful of the distancing to communicate with the opposite persons, that how close are we with the people we are around. So now again back to Rahul and Raj. So they are sitting in the lobby for the interview for their turn. So there's a couch over there. Two people are already sitting. There's a little bit place in between, but Rahul wants to sit. He is feeling nervous, so he kind of manages or squeezes inside, and he sits over there. Two people beside, sitting on both the sides, they get uncomfortable. Raj, he waits there, and when someone goes inside for interview, he then sits for his turn. So now understand, people are watching you all from the CCTV cameras as well. They are continuously, because you are there for a big company, these guys are there for a big company's interview, they have been watched continuously. So the interviewer gauges their confidence. Again, the next point, touch. So now Rahul is being called inside for his interview. He goes inside, he does a handshake with the interviewer, but his handshake is not firm. His palm is sweaty, and he is not aware. The interviewer gets uncomfortable, and he is also not confident again about Rahul. But again, Rahul sits over there. Then next comes Raj. Raj's handshake is firm. Raj is confident about himself. He even his palm was sweaty, but he manages to clean it with a tissue before doing a handshake. But because of this, the interviewer is now convinced about Raj. Again, I'll say, just to speak on this touch part, everyone, like their handshake also needs to be practiced. So I guess during your GMCS trainings, trainers must have taught you about a handshake, how it has to be done. So you all must be careful and learn the skill of a positive handshake or firm handshake. Then pat on your shoulder. So as kids, when our parents or our teachers used to give us a pat on our shoulder, we used to feel really good about ourselves. So a simple touch makes us alleviates our confidence. And I would say in today's situation as well, when you all are feeling low for something, or there is a challenge, so please give a pat on your back and say yes, you're doing a good job. So you yourself will feel good about yourself. So this is what I do always with my for me. So now this fourth one is I moment. I moment now, again, now Rahul is in the interviewer's cabin and now he is not able to face the interviewer in his eyes. So he is looking down on the table or on the walls or everywhere, but not on the interviewer's face. Interviewer understand this. But Rahul is good in technical skills. He is answering the questions, but because he is low in confidence, he is not aware whether he's looking on his face or he's not looking. But interviewer of course gives points for this thing as well. Now comes Raj's turn. He is of course he's also been being asked the technical part of the thing. He is answering his questions, and he's of course trying to be as comfortable as possible, and is whenever possible he's making eye contact and giving answers appropriately. So making eye contact also speaks a lot about you. So whenever possible, whenever you're talking, it is always advisable to make an eye contact and speak. Okay. Sense of smell. Of course, we are cultured and well educated, so of course we will be smelling good. But I would always advise to not apply perfumes or something which are too fragrant in an air-conditioned environment, wherein it gets difficult for others to breathe with so much of fragrance. So always use fragrance which is tolerable and very soothing. Time management. So now time management is something which is our habit. So if we are good at time, it shows how well mannered or how well organized we are. So always be on time whenever you are supposed to be. Color. So why color and non-verbal? Yes. So I will say there is a complete study about color. Color has to be worn specific to the situation. For you cannot be wearing bright red or some bright colors for a interview situation, and of course if in your personal situation or for a wedding or a party, of course you can wear such things. But again, you have to be very mindful of the colors or choosing the colors for the occasion. Silence. So whenever you're supposed to be silent, you have to be silent. When you're supposed to speak, you have to speak. Silence also speaks a lot about your mental composure. So I'll just give an example of silence, wherein if someone is speaking and there is some point which you don't like, but you kind of try to like interrupt them in between. So this is a bad thing, but it doesn't give a good impression about you. So always allow the opposite person to speak first and be silent in their situation. Be silently listening to them, and then after they have spoken, then comes your turn to speak. So silence speaks a lot about your mental composure. Sign language. Sign language here, the example I've given is about traffic signals and boards and all. But I would also say sign language like yes, I'm good with it, or thumbs up, or yeah, okay. So this also carries a lot like high five. This carries very significance, but this changes country to country. Like say in India, this is might be high five. US this might be high five, but in some countries this might be only five. This will be okay in India, this will be 3 in some other country. So be very mindful when you're using sign language elsewhere. Appearance. So yeah, appearance, I will say I always understand appearance with 4 A's. The 4 A's are authentic, appropriate, aesthetic, and approachable. I'll explain all 4 to you all. Authentic. I would say authentic to your own self. So I'll again give an example here. So in between, there were people used to like Salman Khan. So they used to follow Salman Khan blindly. They used to carry that bracelet, his dressing sense, and they were imitating Salman Khan, and they were not uh, like conscious about their own self. So authentic means be authentic to your own self, be authentic to your likings, your culture, your status, and present yourself, make your appearance authentic to your own self, to your own flavor. Okay, so authentic, then appropriate. Again, appropriate, I've said something in color as well. Appropriate means always be appropriate to the occasion. If you are in an interview, be appropriate for the interview. If you are for a wedding or some party, be appropriate to that occasion. So you cannot mix things all together. Then appropriate I've done. Aesthetic here means for females, if you all are wearing salwar suit or a sari or maybe a formal, so the whole appearance, everything together should be aesthetic. So the jewelry you're wearing, so the accessories, the watch or the shoes, everything should complement. Again, same in the case of boys. So if you're wearing the shirt or the coat should complement. The shoes you're wearing on a navy blue jacket should complement. And you have to be very aware and mindful about the belt and the shoes you're wearing together. If you're wearing a brown belt, then you have to wear a brown shoes. If you're wearing a black belt, then again you have to wear a black shoes. Again, about the socks, this is very important. If you're wearing if you are wearing a navy blue pant, you have to wear a navy blue socks. If you're wearing a black pant, wear a black socks, and don't match your socks with the shirt. So this is about being aesthetic. That it should be soothing to the eyes of the opposite person. Then comes approachable. Appearance, like this was about the clothes, but being approachable is through your body language. If you all are like not giving pleasant expressions, if you are sitting closed handed, so people will not like to approach you. They would not like to come and meet you. So I would say these 4 A's are very important, and be mindful about it. Paralanguage or paralinguistic. So paralanguage, I'll be covering in a different slide altogether. It is also very important now. So if you all have any questions, so yeah, maybe in the last I'll answer. Okay. So now it's about paralinguistic. It refers to the vocal elements when you're speaking. It's not the words you're using, it is the sound, the pitch. The first is the pause. When you're speaking, you have to take relevant pause. The way we read something from a book, when there is a comma or a full stop, we take appropriate pause. But whenever we are speaking, we tend to forget about the commas and full stops. So take appropriate pauses, like frame a sentence in your mind, and use pauses appropriately wherever there has to be a comma or a full stop. Then volume. A loud volume or a low volume also plays an important role when you are speaking. Opposite person is able to understand whether you are angry or you're low in confidence, or you are as in during telephonic conversation, if you are shouting on top of your voice, other people are not comfortable with you. So be mindful and be aware of your volume. Pitch. Pitch is about the shrill in your voice. If your voice is too sharp or too harsh, if you are excited, it tends to get very loud or very harsh. So try to soothe it and make it pleasant for the listener. Word stress, there is another slide on this. I'll cover it over there. Tone of the voice. Tone of the voice, I'll say avoid being sarcastic. So or using such negative tones which makes other person not comfortable while talking to you. Like, communication has to be very pleasant experience. Other person should remember talking to you. So you always try to make it a good experience for the opposite person. Again, rate of speech, which I've said earlier as well. Rate of speech, you have to be mindful about the rate of speech. It should not be too fast or it should not be too slow. It has to be just appropriate, like 120 to 140 words per minute. And yeah, it can be developed with practice. Now, paralinguistic word stress. So I'll give you first example, and again, let us, like I've been speaking for quite a long time, I'll read out a sentence and I would want you all to just answer in the question box. First example I'll give you all first is, she is giving this money to me. So here I'm emphasizing on she, so which means she is the one giving this money to me and nobody else. Okay. So taking only the same sentence itself, I'll change the word stress at different words, and the meaning will change. But you all have to understand the meaning. So if I say the next sentence, she's giving this money to me, I'm putting emphasis on giving. So she is giving this money to me. So what do you all understand by this? Please post something. I would want to. No, I would want you all to reply. It's my money. Okay. So here she is giving, of course. Now in this case, she is giving this money to me and not lending. You all are right. She is like she is giving the money and she is not lending the money. The next sentence I'll put an emphasis on money. She is giving this money to me. She is giving this money to me. I'm emphasizing on the word money. So what does this mean? Good, you all are good audience. You all are answering. Okay, please fast. Yes, right. So she is, money is being exchanged and nothing else. She is giving this money to me. So I'm putting emphasis while speaking, I'm putting emphasis on money. So the meaning is money is being exchanged and not anything else. And last, she is giving this money to me. She is giving this money to me. I'm putting emphasis on me. So what does this mean? Yes, she's giving this money to me and nobody else. You're right. So the meaning, the overall meaning of the same sentence changes just by changing the emphasis on the words. So people, they tend to see the verbal communication. If I'll say she is giving this money to me, but whenever I put emphasis, a word stress, the meaning changes. So be mindful while putting a word stress and what you exactly want to communicate to the opposite person. Okay. Written communication. So as you all, we are chartered accountants, we are into this field. We might be in jobs or in practice, but either of the places we have to have a strong written communication. We will be writing emails, just like the sir said earlier as well. And we must be submitting reports as well. So the everything has to have show that we are chartered accountants, we are writing something relevant and very good. So first and most important one is, again, use simple language. It is faster to write, faster to read, and you get through your message across very often and in a friendly way. Kind of try to avoid difficult words or different words. Like we do get many emails, but we kind of at times try to use the same language in our mails as well, but it might change the context of your email, and at times if the words are very difficult, it gets difficult for the opposite person to understand the whole meaning and then reply appropriately. I'll give you an example which I used to use every time earlier. So when we write emails, we usually write for your reference, or we attach something, we write for your reference. So, and also I used to like this word perusal. So I started writing these words for your perusal. But there is a vast difference in both the words. For your reference means, please, it's for your reference, refer it and keep it with you. but for your perusal means for your critical review. So you're giving that person the right to review it and then critically evaluate it and send it back to you. So be mindful when whatever you are sending, and use the word appropriately. Order your thoughts before writing anything, a report or an email. Order your thoughts first. You can just write a rough mail somewhere and then order it, like place it in an orderly manner and then present it, and or you can directly start and make it in an orderly fashion, but always order your thoughts, because again it gets very difficult if you send an email to someone and they are not able to understand it. We have been receiving emails, but clients are sending us something, but we don't understand what they are communicating. Then we have to give a call to them by kya bola. So always order your thoughts. Visualize the reader when you're writing a long report or a letter. Whenever you're writing something, always write from their point of view, whether they'll be able to understand it. So if your long report is that, it should not happen like they lose interest in between and they are not able to understand, and they call you, please come down for a presentation and explain me what, take me through your report. So this will be double effort for you. So instead of making it difficult for you, make it simpler for the reader. Add meaningful headlines and captions. Always break the paragraphs into headlines and give meaningful captions, so that it gets easier for the eyes to read, and the reader is able to understand it very well. Always check grammar and spelling. No document or no written communication should go from your end which is not checked, spell checked or grammar checked. So I advise my team also to download some good apps in their system, wherein it checks their grammar and spelling whenever they type, as and when they start typing. So because this helps, and while they kind of tend to learn English the way when they are typing itself. Always proofread the document. Or we are CAs, we are supposed to quote some sections and some case laws in our reports. So always be mindful and always proofread it. So check the reference before writing or after writing. After writing, leave the document and come back to it for checking. Don't just write and send it across. Wait for some draft something, wait for some time, 5-10 minutes, and then read it again. See whether the meaning is coming out exactly what you wanted to communicate. If not, then make the relevant changes and then send it across. Fonts, always please avoid non-standard fonts. Use 11 or 12 font size, and I would suggest use Arial, Calibri or Garamond as a font type, and maximum of 22 for PPT presentations. Okay. The next slide is on again, this is something humorous: written communication disasters. So something funny which we have been facing. You all must have also received such kind of emails, but I'll just give an example. But we have to be aware that we don't commit such mistakes. So I'm suffering from fever, please declare 1-day holiday. So your grammar is also right, the spellings are also right, but there's a big mistake over here. The person is saying declare 1-day holiday. Instead of leave, they are typing holiday. So be aware and read newspapers or read documents wherein your English itself is improved. Covering note, I'm enclosed here with. Third one is letter writing. I am well here and hope you are also in the same well. I guess if that person would have read this again before sending the message, mail, they would have rectified this mistake. So to avoid such kind of disasters, always read second, do a check on the mail or the reports you are sending, you're supposed to be sending. Okay. Now, barriers to effective communication, or how can we avoid this barriers to make a communication effective or get it through properly. So first is language. Again, at times English becomes a barrier, and again we are Indians, so we are rich. We have got rich culture, rich language heritage. So from north to south, language keeps on changing everywhere. But we have to be aware and mindful of the opposite person's language, because we have to speak to them. They are the person who are supposed to understand and give us relevant feedback. So always try to understand, figure out a common language, and then talk. Noise, now here there are so many participants, but if you all were unmuted, so the noise would have been a barrier. You wouldn't have able to understand what I'm speaking, or there would have been a lot of distraction. The next point. So I'll say the example of when I used to be in college or school. If there was a window, we used to see outside the window. The trees and the birds were the distraction for us. So avoid such kind of distraction when you are speaking. Try to make the speaker listen to you as much as possible, and avoid such distractions. Next is put downs. Put downs, we ourselves have an habit to put ourselves down before anything challenging or something. If something goes wrong, we start negative self talking to our own self, like I'm not worth it, I cannot do it. So because of this put downs, we kind of present ourselves to the opposite person in a way wherein it appears that we are not confident. So don't negative self talk with your own self. Always try to boost your confidence, because if you will not do it, so no one else can help you. Lack of interest at times, there are few topics in which we are not interested, so kind of tend to not pay attention to it. Disability, or I'll say inability to understand something, because if I am using difficult words, or a very different vocabulary, like I'm imitating Europeans or Americans, and so you all won't be able to understand. Discomfort with the topic. At times we are not comfortable with few topics, so it is always advisable to avoid such topics. So distance, again, now in today's scenario, I will say distance is not a problem now, because again, such webinars, CA Institute is taking so much of effort to bring to your home all the knowledge. Too many questions, so it tend to happen when you're in direct classroom situation, or you're talking to in a board meeting. If people tend to ask too many questions, the flavor of the message or the main communication gets lost in between those questions. Other people, we tend to think about other people, like वो क्या सोचेगा हमारे बारे में, या मैं वो क्या सोचेंगे, ये क्या सोचेंगे, मम्मी क्या सोचेंगे, डैडी क्या सोचेंगे, फ्रेंड्स क्या सोचेंगे. So we think about all those things, and we tend to limit ourselves. So please, next is time. Time management is very important, and again, speaking the right thing on the right time is also very important. So this was about the barriers to effective communication. Then there are few tips to improve your communication skills. Effective communication: when verbally communicating, always keep an open mind about what people say. So I've said this earlier as well. Never presume that what they are speaking is, like, before they even completing, we kind of try to presume, nahi ab ye to kuch negative hi bolne wala hai. So don't cut them, don't allow them to speak completely. That is their right. So let them complete, and then start speaking. So don't presume anything before he or she has completed. Ask a specific question if you want a specific answer. Usually if we want something clearly, we know the answer what we want, so frame a question so perfect that you get the right answer. Take notes wherever possible. So this is important, wherein again we are into jobs, or we are client servicing into practice. So when our client or our boss, when they give us multiple instructions all together on our phone or something, so we say yes, we'll do it, and then when we are actually delivering, we tend to forget 2-3 things in between. Like there were 5-6 things, 3 things we delivered, and 3 things are not there. After a day, they get pissed off, and we are also not happy. Like we've been working 12 hours, 14 hours, and then the result is not positive. The boss is not happy, or the client is not happy. So always it is advisable to take notes, whatever the opposite person is saying. I always carry a diary whenever I'm on a phone, or even on a webinar. So if someone asks me something, if I'm not able to answer, I always take a note of it. so that I am like I am taking note and I'm sure about myself. Speak in as natural tone as possible to create a warm environment. So I've told it earlier. So don't imitate someone else's accent. Use your own natural tone, and this creates a warm environment, a warm personal environment whenever you're talking to someone. So the because communication has to be a good experience for either of you all. If it is a bad experience, the person will not remember you or will remember you negatively. So always try to be mindful what you're speaking and what tone you're speaking, whether you'll understand if the opposite person is liking it or not. Use humor when and where appropriate. I'll say avoid being sarcastic altogether. People don't like any sarcastic comments, and avoid humor when you're talking to a superior. So if you're using humor, so use it well balanced, and or don't go over the board, and avoid it with a superior altogether. Avoid using unclear and complex words, which I've been saying. Use simple words so that your message is through clearly. Always try to put yourself in other situation while in midst of a conversation and respond accordingly. So empathize, a single word if I say for this is always empathize with the opposite person. Stand in their shoes and understand what they are saying, or maybe when you're speaking, always stand in opposite person's shoes and understand how they'll feel about it. So be mindful and empathize with others if you want to your communication to get through and get a positive result. And it does not mean that you always talk very good or don't talk about your like bad experiences, but be assertive while speaking. Don't use such words, negative words, which hurts the opposite person and they close their mind and they don't understand you. Okay. And do give relevant feedback. So yeah, after I'm done with this session, I would want you all to give me relevant feedback on what like about the session altogether. And as I've said earlier, I want this session to be interactive, and I have asked Mishra ji to place a poll. Yeah. So I would launch a poll, and sometime there are questions, 10 questions, and I would want you all to answer each one of them. As we are falling short of time, we have got only 5 minutes now. I would want you all to answer it quickly. So okay, the poll is coming clearly or not. Which of this is a communication skill? Talking clearly, chewing gum, or looking bored? You all have only 5 seconds to answer this. Quick. Okay. How does this change? So you all have to answer in the poll itself. Just a second. Huh? हेलो हाँ, ये पोल दिख रहा है क्या बराबर से? ये
Shira, we can able to see the poll, huh? So you can continue. Madam, we can see the poll.
Okay. Okay. So which of this is a communication skill? This is done. 45% of you all have voted. And एक second. Huh? Yes, the poll result is Which of this is a communication skill? The first is talking clearly. So 99% of you all have voted for it as yes, you all are right. Looking bored is, I'm talking about skill and not not a communication. So clearly is the communication skill. Okay. Why is next question not coming? Just a second. Again, which of this is a communication skill? Talking at the same time as someone else, listening to what people say, and putting your fingers in your ears. Fast. 5 seconds. Huh? Please start answering. Okay. Okay, Acha, you are not able to say. Okay, which of this is a communication skill? Talking at the same time as someone else, listening to what people say, putting your fingers in your ears. I'm talking about communication skill. Yes. Okay, let me see. So the right answer is listening to what people say. So 97 people have said the right thing. Talking at the same time as someone else is not a communication skill. It is wrong. Okay. Which of this is not a communication skill? Not a communication skill. Huh? Running, texting, chatting to people. Which of this is not a communication skill? Running, texting, and chatting to people. You all can fill in the poll. Yeah. Fast. Not a communication skill. Here I'm saying. Okay. So the answer is running, which is not a communication skill. Texting and chatting is a communication skill. Okay. What body language shows you are listening? Turning away from the speaker, nodding and making eye contact, looking out of the window. What body language shows that you are listening? What body language shows you are listening? Turning away from a speaker, nodding and making eye contact, looking out of the window. Okay, fast. Okay. So yes, 98% have said nodding and making eye contact. You all are right. Which of this is not a communication skill? Laughing, swimming, and asking questions. Not a communication skill. Which of this is not a communication skill? Laughing, swimming, asking questions. Of course, swimming. Yes. When someone is telling you about an accident they have had, how will you respond? You look pleased, you will look behind you, or you look concerned. Right? 5 seconds. Jaldi. Okay, yes. You will look concerned, of course, not pleased. Which of this is a communication skill? Checking the weather forecast, checking the time, checking that you've understood someone. Yes, please vote. Okay. Cross checking that you have understood someone. Okay, so always, whenever the way I've told you, you have to ask the opposite person to repeat. If you are on the receiver's end, always repeat what you have understood before communicating something. Which of this is a communication skill? Saying the same thing over and over, saying why you believe something, saying what people want to hear. Very dicey question, I'll say. Fast, jaldi. 38% have only replied. Okay. You all are confused. Saying why you believe something and saying what people want to hear. So I will say always say why you believe something and present it in a way, in an assertive way. If there's something, if you're talking something which is not comfortable for the other person or which is against the other person, so be assertive. Or maybe if you want to say no, so if you cannot say yes now, if you cannot be saying what they want to hear. So if you are not comfortable, say a no, but say assertively and without hurting someone else's feeling. So the answer is B. If you don't agree with someone else, how will you behave? Like, what will you say? You are wrong, I don't agree, stop talking rubbish. ठीक है. Yes, you will say I don't agree. So if you have to say very politely, I don't agree. If you have to understand the fact of agree to disagree. Everywhere everyone will not agree with your opinion, or everyone will not like you, but this does not mean you also don't like them, or there has to be a concept of agree to disagree. There will be disagreement between our families, our friends, or our colleagues, but this does not change anything between you all. It's just an opinion. And the last one is, if you want to complain, what's the best way to complain? Stay calm, but stick to your point, get very angry, or get ready to cry. Okay. Yes. Always it's advisable to stay calm, but stick to your point and talk assertively, talk clearly about your feelings or your thing, but be assertive and don't try hurt anyone else's emotion. So here I'll also say, whenever again we are into jobs and practice our client servicing. So if a client doesn't like our work, they tend to react. At times they might talk rudely or they might shout as well. So this does not mean we will shout back at them, or this does not mean we will also react. We have to stay calm and respond appropriately, like respond to the situation, to their understand their problem, and then respond. Okay, so I'm through with the question and answer session. So thank you. You all are a good audience. Before concluding, I will say communication works for those who work at it. As you all understand, again, to explain it, I'll share a very short story. which is my favorite. See, I'll start it. So there were, it's about two stones. They were lying in a valley. These stones were bored over there. They are now, these stones are talking. They're talking to them, each other. Oh my God, I'm so bored. I'm lying here for such a long time. I cannot see people. I cannot see new things. Oh, I'm stuck here. Wish I was at some other place. Both are like not happy with their situation. Just then there was a sculptor who was passing by. He hears them. He comes there for their rescue. He tells them, see, I can help you all. But the stone says, how? I'm a sculptor. I can make beautiful statues out of stones. So the stones get excited. Wow. But I have to chisel you, and I have to use a hammer, and it is very painful. But in the end, the result will be good. If y'all are ready, so the first stone is like, no, I cannot take all the pain. I am happy where I am. I'll stay here. Thank you. The second stone agrees. It says, no, I want to change my lifestyle. I want to come out of this, and I want to achieve my dreams. So the sculptor makes a good statue out of it. It places it in a temple on the far above, up on the mountain. People started coming there to worship that statue. But the first stone, who has not done anything, it's lying down in the valley. People are stamping on it now, and they are going up on the hill to see the beautiful statue. So again, this is very appropriate to our current situation. We are in lockdown. Change has already happened. We don't know after this lockdown how will things will react, whether jobs will be there or whether clients will be there. But we have to upskill ourselves. The institute is taking a lot of effort. Every day there are so many webinars, and all are just to upskill ourselves. So please work on yourself, and just like communication works for those who work at it, try to upskill yourself in these hard times. And thank you from my side, and thank you. If let me see if there are questions. If you all have got questions, so please.
Raji,
Please.
questions, if any? Thank you, Hiram, for an excellent presentation.
Okay.
I think you covered quite a lot of it, and so many aspects of it which you touched upon. And the quizzes, the different above quiz also helped us. मिश्रा जी, any questions? मिश्रा जी?
सर पूरा क्वेश्चन दिखा दिया है सर. मैडम पूरा क्वेश्चन आ गया था आपके पास में?
एक्चुअली ना सब बीच में मिक्स हो गया है, so I'm not sure. If they have got any questions, they can mail me on my mail ID. So I'll be happy to answer you all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
So we'll consolidate all the questions and we'll send across to you.
Sure.
Let me also recognize presence of my regional council colleague, CA Manish Gadia. Manish bhai, welcome, and I request you to please carry out a hearty vote of thanks for this first session. Manish bhai, over to you.
Thank you, Murtuza bhai, for giving me this opportunity. So, as a chartered accountant, we all are subject expert, and technically we are quite well. But what I find is where we are lacking is the communication skill, whether it is written or oral. So Hiram has taken a very well session. Not only she has taught us the written communication, but the verbal communication also. She has given various tips also, various other things also. So with these few words, I thank Hiram for sparing her time and taking a wonderful session, and sharpen our skill on the presentation part also, communication part also. Thanks a lot, and I thank Murtuza bhai also for putting so much effort on a daily basis for organizing all these webinars for all the members. Hats off to Murtuza bhai. Thank you.
So with that, then we move on to the second session for the day. We have an expert speaker, or the batsman, so to say, Virendra Sehwag in forensic and fraud investigation, Rajkumar Srivastav. So Manish bhai, may I request you to please introduce Rajkumar ji, and then he gets started. Manish bhai, over.
Once Murtuza bhai, thank you Murtuza bhai, and once Murtuza bhai is saying that he is a Virendra Sehwag, so I really need to give any introduction. But again, since Murtuza bhai has asked me to give his introduction, So the Mr. Rajkumar is actually a certified fraud examiner. His area of expertise is forensic investigation, fraud investigation, asset tracing, due diligence, regulatory compliances, investigation training, and industry. If you go into that also, the industry expertise is banking and finance, media, entertainment, infrastructure, aviation, private equity. As far as his professional experience is concerned, he is advisor to Protiviti's forensic service and dispute advisory practice. He has a 30+ year of experience in the field of investigation. He is a former law enforcement officer, certified fraud examiner, science and law graduate. So you can see his qualification, very diversified. He has worked with Maharashtra Police Force for over 18 years. So he has seen police side also. He has seen investigation, fraud from the client perspective also. He has also worked with the forensic team of EY and Deloitte and vigilance team of Citibank. While working with police, Rajkumar was decorated with Director General of Police insignia for meritorious service. So, lot of award to him. He is recipient of 140 rewards and commentary notes and letter of appreciation while working with Anti-Corruption Bureau. He was instrumental in investigation slum rehabilitation scam. He was part of investigation team investigating Maharashtra Film City scam and Mandana Dairy scam. So various well-known scam is to his credit. So heads off to Rajkumar ji, and you can understand that he is the right person to take us through the asset tracing, investigation and asset recovery. So with these few words, I welcome you, Mr. Rajkumar. Over to you, Murtuza bhai.
Thank you, Manish bhai. And Rajkumar ji, over to you. You can, your slides we can see, you can get started. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Mr. Manish and Murtuza, for this generous introduction. I'm very glad and very happy and very thankful again to you because you invited me for this particular session to come and share my experiences with the audience here. I'm very fortunate to work with all the chartered accountants, very eminent and very intellectual class of the society. And I'm lucky since 2008 I'm doing that. Mr. Manish just mentioned that I worked with Deloitte Forensics as well as EY Forensics. And also I was heading the vigilance team in Citibank. So I'm very fortunate to work with you all and to serve the industry as well. And also always feel proud that they always feel proud that I have worked with the Mumbai Police Force or the Maharashtra Police Force. I was lucky because whatever I am today, because I served in the police force, that's the reason I'm here today. And thank you. And let me start my session. Am I audible clearly to everyone?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Am I visible clearly?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, PPT full screen करिए ना sir, PPT.
Yeah, sure. I'm doing that.
Perfect.
So my topic says asset tracing, investigation, and asset recovery. Is it visible now? The screen, the full screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when I was working with the chartered accountants in all these companies or the organizations, what I realized basically was, I mean, every chartered accountant or the investigators or the CFEs are doing the fantastic job. But what happens is after the end of the investigation, what is important there is the client expects the recovery or probably they want the money back. That is the crux always. And law enforcement is also doing a fantastic job in recovering the money by various legal means. But I think in some cases there are some limitations where the law enforcement agencies cannot go and recover that money. Or probably in the case of banks, whether it could be the NP account, which is not a fraud basically, or willful default again, which is not a fraud, there is a challenge how to recover that money. And I think that makes very important then for the banks or the financial institutions to recover their money, because it is finally the public money. So that is always a challenge with everyone, especially the financial institutions here. So I'm not going to talk about the forensic accounting here. I'm just saying that after the investigation or during the investigation, the efforts of the chartered accountants or the investigator should also be to find out the assets. Unless you complete or unless you identify the assets and recover those properties through the legal channel, or the client adopt that legal channel and recover that money, I think then nobody, I think any client would not be very happy without getting the assets or the information or information about the properties, and that would be the documentary evidence that always helps. So in such scenario, I mean, there are various options for the recovery, but I think there is one important tool which is basically asset tracing. There are various options available in the criminal side, in the civil side, as well as before the courts of law, tribunals everywhere. But unless you go and tell that particular authority to see, we have the information about the assets, we have the information about the or the documentary or the ownership evidence of those properties, the stakeholders or probably the authorities may not be in a position to help you. They may pass the order in your favor, but again, I think the onus lies upon us in many cases where we cannot or we are not in a position, or probably we have to be in a position to come and basically identify those assets and give that information or strengthen the hands of the authorities. That becomes very important. So now, I mean, why this topic was selected there during this particular lockdown, or probably we are all facing the corona pandemic, and we all know that this is not a very good time. It's a very tough time for the industry and for every individual of India and the world. So why this topic was chosen during this lockdown? Because it makes sense. See, finally, everybody is struggling, whether it is a government or the governments, I can say, or I can say the financial institutions. These organizations or institutions are grappling to, recover their money back, and there is no money in the market. So then the government is at present a little lenient about the borrowers. Today, in fact, Supreme Court also said that again, I mean, be a little lenient, and I think you have to, they directed the RBI that they have to follow their order of postponing those NPS for 11 months or giving the moratorium. They have to follow that in letter and spirit. That is what the advisory has been given by the Supreme Court today. So in such situation, I mean, then how the banks are going, or probably the financial institutions are going to recover the public money? There's a big challenge. And there could be also a possibility that the borrowers or the people, in fact, who are involved in various kind of issues of the frauds, they may take the advantage, or I can say disadvantage, and say that, okay, fine, government has given the moratorium, we are also the victims and we don't have the money. I think in such situation, I think what is important or prime for the institutions or the victim, that they need to then verify those claims of the borrowers or the people who are supposed to give back the money they are not giving, whether their financial capability is really bad or it is still good, or probably they want to take the disadvantage of the situation of corona pandemic or the government regulations or the orders. So I think that becomes very important in this particular sense. I just forgot to mention that my colleague Suprabhat is also on the call here on this in this session with me, and he may also probably share his insight wherever he feels want to probably add some value, and he will try to share those insights along from his side. So let me go to the next slide now. I just want to set the agenda for today's session. We already set the context here. We want to understand what is asset tracing, and we need to understand what is the approach and methodology for the asset tracing, and what are the various tools for identification of assets. Basically, today's session, I'll just not sharing my credentials or probably, just to boast, what we have done, but also we'll be trying to educate the chartered accountants, because they are, they have a lot of tools, in fact. At this side, basically about the field work and all, or probably the desktop searches or the public domain searches, they may not be very skilled as far as this area is concerned, but I definitely want to share some things with everyone, so that suppose if you are working on it, you can also do or upgrade your skills on this particular thing. Or maybe probably if you are assigning this job to the outside parties or external parties, probably then you should know what is your expectation, what you can definitely try to give something to your client, or what you can obtain for your client through the external sources. That's important here. Then we'll talk about some tools for identification of assets. Then of course, my presentation would be with the case studies also, because I'll be sharing a lot of practical inputs here, and this is always what I do in my training sessions. And we'll see what are the skill sets required for the asset tracing. That is again very important. And what is asset recovery? What are the methods of the asset recovery? What is the employee fraud, and how the recovery of the assets can be done from the employees who are indulged in the frauds, or probably in some misconduct, or probably in the procurement issues. Then there are some civil remedies also. Again, we'll talk with some good examples here. There are criminal remedies, and I'll give some practical solutions here. We may not go or delve into the details about how this can be applied, but yeah, definitely I'll give some. I'll just try to ignite your minds so that you can develop, or probably you can assume that in the future, if there is some situation for your client, then probably you can think of those means probably, or there are some options available in the law or in the industry. Then of course, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, again, which is a very important, I think, regulation which was brought by the government of India, or I can say the legislatures in 2016, and this is acting very beneficial to the victims in the industry. Then we can also talk about what are the other legislations for the asset recovery for the banks or the financial institutions, and also asset recovery remedies for the employees. Even sometimes employees are also, expecting some money from the employers. We may not go into detail, but of course, definitely, yeah. But today's situation, the employees are not getting the money. What are the various legal course and means available? We will not go into details again, but we'll touch upon that. And asset recovery and the remedy for the other countries. For example, if we are doing asset tracing in India, what are the regulations? The new regulations, in fact, has been brought in by the legislators of India or the government, and how we are going to assist the victims, not in India, but also the victims outside. Maybe if I want to be specific here, especially the UAE, United Arab Emirates, all these places like Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah, and all those places. So I think we can touch upon that as well. So let us move on to the slide number 4 here. So what is asset tracing? Basically, in today's environment, as you all know, that the sophisticated criminals always employ complex fraud, complex financial vehicles, and other methods to conceal the physical location and source of assets misappropriated to the fraud and deceit. So this is always a challenge. It is not easy for anyone to just to go and identify the assets or recover the assets, because the fraudster, when they commit fraud, or probably when the willful defaulters, they in fact default, and they send out the money outside. They want to create those assets or properties, and they are very they do it in a very tactful manner, and they create very the complex financial vehicles and all those. Through that they do, and this becomes very difficult for the investigators to trade those assets. But I think there are n number of cases. In fact, I must have worked almost on 500 plus cases along with my team in last I can say last 8 years. And I always when I always ask this question to the audience when I conduct these kind of sessions, what could be the percentage of success rate as far as you think about the asset tracing? The people usually say it could be 10%, 5%. At the most, people will say it is 30% success rate could be for asset tracing. But let me tell you, because this is very encouraging, which I need to share with you. If you diligently, probably just not doing an asset tracing exercise, but if you take this task as an asset tracing investigation, I think then you can succeed to a great extent. And in fact, the success rate as far as asset tracing is concerned is almost 95%. And this happened in almost many assignments. I can say 95% of the assignments this happened. So let me share an example here. In fact, we were in fact helping one of the clients. It was basically a public sector bank, and here there was some lending around 500 crores to given to the borrower. And the borrower, in fact, created a complex financial vehicle here. In fact, he sent out the money or diverted the funds to a country which is located in a Southeast Asian region. And in fact, that money was then finally, that money, when we did the investigation, we did a lot of investigation along with the forensic accounting, plus the desktop searches, speaking to the sources on the ground, and in fact, basically trying to review various regulatory databases, speaking to the law enforcement officers and all those things. So we got to know that in fact this person, in fact, the money went to Southeast Asian country, and from there the money came back to India. In fact, that money went to, in fact, Haryana, where they have created some. They invested in some hospitality industry, and some part of the money they also invested in the southern state of India. That was a huge, in fact, the investment by these people. And also, in fact, there was also investment in a lot of Bollywood movies by this particular borrower, where he suffered huge losses. And in fact, we also found out that there are some 2 cases registered against this particular party with the economic offense wing. When we spoke to the sources close to the law enforcement agencies, in fact, we were told that in fact this particular person, in fact, has committed a fraud as well. And we got to know that upon, I mean, of course, we identified the properties. I mean, it's worth several crores across India, which we shared with the client. But also, we got to know that there is a huge sum in few crores, which was expected by the borrower from the income tax department as an IT refund. And we immediately told the client, because anyway, the IT has already sent a letter to these people, and you should immediately move and probably initiate those steps and try to recover at least this money, because this is basically it would be the cash, or which is money, in fact, which could be easily encashable through the bank or whatever it is. So I think this is one example which I wanted to share here. Basically, we are talking about complex transactions, how the people actually misuse those special complex financial vehicles. So where asset tracing can be useful or the investigation be carried out, it could be diversion or the siphoning of loan frauds. It could be the personal dispute and litigation. We have the case study on this. In fact, when we say about this, and yeah, there are also employee frauds, when the stress asset management by the banks, when they want to do this exercise, or enforcement of legal decree, financial order, recovery order, and etc. We'll also talk about some case study here as well. Siphoning of funds by the business partners. Again, we have one case study here. Money laundering or evasion of taxes, and we are, in fact, especially there are some regulators, in fact, they are looking for wherever there's a default of taxes, where the borrower, in fact, had defaulted or probably committed some fraud. In such cases, also the law enforcement agencies, they come to us, or the regulators. And the creation of assets by defrauding foreign banks and employers, which we just discussed, and we'll discuss in little detail the subsequent slides. The pre-disbursement or pre-investment due diligence by banks and private equity firms. In fact, I mean, when I was in the previous company, in fact, we had gone to the RBI and requested that whenever we had done some trainings for the RBI, that time we told RBI that whenever the private equity firm, they want to invest any kind of money or whatever the amount they want to invest, or probably help or support with to a business entity, they always conduct the background checks to know the things which are not usually available in the public domain, or which was not disclosed by the recipient to the lender, for example, in case of private equity client. So in this particular case, in fact, we told RBI that, I mean, when we can do this, I mean, why, I mean, banks, Indian or financial institutions should not do it. And in fact, the officer, he was a pretty senior level officer. He accepted, he agreed for that, and he said that, yes, there's a good suggestion. Can you just put something in writing and share with us? In fact, and we did that job. In fact, me and my colleagues, and also I think the RBI invited similar kind of feedback from other companies also. And finally, that RBI came out with a circular in 2015 on the loan fraud circular, basically 7th May 2015. In this particular circular, RBI has emphasized on the pre-investment due diligence. RBI has decided a threshold. It said that wherever there is a 5 crore and more lending in a particular case, then I think the bank should definitely go for the pre-investment lending due diligence. But I don't know whether how much the bank diligently they are doing. Probably they must have developed the capability, or they must be doing on their own. But at least I have not got a single assignment till date, or I have not assisted any of my banking clients as far as this pre-investment due diligence is concerned. And of course, there's then also identification of the Benami undisclosed properties across jurisdictions. When I'm saying property, the properties always doesn't mention only the movable and immovable properties. Movable properties had various other ingredients also in that. For example, sometimes the companies win the large contracts. That in fact, I was working on one of the cases, in fact, where we identified some assets. And this particular company has in fact paid some 5 crores to the government of Maharashtra as official fee, where we had in fact won the contract for a particular thing, and he was supposed to get that money in crores in the future and the near future. So in fact, this also will be counted as an asset, because this will be this important information. This information would be important for the client who has lent basically to such borrowers. Or maybe the ships, vessels, yachts, private aircraft. This can also be the movable assets, not only the jewelry and the cash, and the fixed assets, or maybe just I mean the fixed deposits, or the bank deposits. These are also the assets. So let us move to the concealment, the misappropriate assets and the funds. What does it mean? Basically, it could be accounting manipulations. You, as a chartered accountant, you always identify that people, in fact, purchase of fixed assets as an inflated price. Sometimes misrepresentation of the company accounts. Sometimes it could be inflated or the fake invoices from the complicit vendors. Sometimes they set up a shell companies in the name of the local loyal employees. Usually, these kind of things we always observe in Kolkata and West Bengal. There are always we found the properties in the name of the drivers, office peons, and all those things. Then it could be tax theft or the tax or the evasion, which I just discussed with you in the previous slide. And the third party investment also, sometimes they purchase assets or probably invest in subsidiary companies. Sometimes misuse of the borrowed funds, we just discussed sometime a few minutes ago. So let us move on to the next slide here. What is the approach? What is the approach required for the asset tracing? To find out the asset details, basically, the investigation should understand that successful asset searches begin with the comprehensive identification of all the recoverable assets. I want to deliberate on a word here, recoverable assets. See, many a time, in fact, people, in fact, conduct the exercise for the banks or the financial institutions, or sometimes maybe get the work from the chartered accountancy firms also. And in that particular case, in fact, there is no point in getting the information about the properties charged with the bank, or maybe the encumbered properties. That may not be useful to the client. The client would be interested in knowing about the properties which are not known to them. I think that becomes very important when you are adopting certain approach to do that work. And the field work also is very important, because a lot of we are actually good with the databases, but still we are not gone to that stage where we get everything in the public domain. We need to rely upon the discussion with various stakeholders or the sources in the industry, former employees, vendors, suppliers, and all those things. Plus, you should also have the capability to go on the ground and verify all those assets. What you get probably to corroborate what you got from the public domain searches and the review of the forensic accounting. That's important here. So jurisdiction, when the assets are for understanding local laws, is very important here. Understanding local laws, because once you identify those assets, you have to contact to the right. You have to contact the right the law. I can say the law firm who would better know. I mean, how to approach, or probably which forum would be the appropriate forum where they can go and approach and probably try to help your clients or you to recover those properties. Then let us discuss about methodology for the asset tracing. I always tell that when you conduct the asset tracing exercise, this is very important to develop a family tree. That family tree is very, very important. For example, unless you complete that, develop that family tree, it will not be possible, because you should know, I mean, what are the, where are the roots of this particular borrower? Where are the roots of this particular target? Many a times we come to know that this guy actually is staying in Mumbai since last, his family is staying since last 8 generations in Mumbai. But if you dig out, probably if you do some deep dive, probably you can get information about that these people are roots in maybe in Junjun in Rajasthan, or probably Pali in Rajasthan, or maybe in Chandigarh in North India. And these people, in fact, what they do is basically still they have the affiliation, the likings, or the respect for their hometown. And if you conduct that proper exercise, you will come to know, okay, this particular borrower has created a trust in his native place in Rajasthan, and basically, and he has 400 or 500 acres of land there, and he has big medical institution there, or maybe a college, or it could be any kind of college or some investment. I think if you do a deep dive, probably then only because of this developing a family tree can give a lot of leads. For example, who are the people in the family, where they are traveling, why they are traveling, and these will all come to know from the social media. Then if it is not possible to do the asset tracing at once across India, it's not possible, and nobody should do that also. That is not the right approach. We have to first, from the family tree, develop a family tree, understand the people in the family, what their businesses are, what are their interests, which places they're traveling, and only those areas or those geographies we need to focus and find out what assets you can probably identify, you can get those assets. Then once you identify these, then populate the list of assets pertaining to the target. Then conduct analysis of the financial records of the companies and populate the list of assets. Many a time when you do the forensic accounting as a chartered accountant, you come to know a lot of things where the money is actually going. From there also we can get a lot of leads, in fact, and we can further develop those leads through public domain searches and the field inquiries. Then background check, connect with the relevant stakeholders, gather information, gather field intelligence by conducting background and lifestyle. See, many a time people in fact land in trouble because of their lifestyle. There are a number of cases, in fact, where people, in fact, the people who have a lot of money are probably when they commit fraud or when they get the easy money, they try to, in fact, use that particular money, and they show off that money to everyone in the society. So, in fact, that's the reason, in fact, when you're doing the social media searches, I think you should always try to see the Facebook, another account, definitely, and people who are actually above 50 years of age. That is my observation when I do this kind of work, are not very active on the social media. But if you see the children, they may be active, but definitely always you should see in the social media about the grandchildren. Try to do the analysis, which is open source information. Always try to see the social media post or probably social media analysis of the grandchildren, because they give a lot of information because of their innocence, and those in fact act as a very good lead, in fact, to develop the information to in fact identify those assets. They talk, they boast about their business interest, they talk about the transaction related parties, all those things will be available here. Site visits is very important, and no asset tracing would be completed without giving the ownership evidence. And always the client always say, whenever you go for the meeting, sir, ये सब ठीक है, लेकिन आप हमको ownership evidence देंगे क्या? The answer should be yes. I mean, we have to give that, otherwise no client will entertain, or probably it may not help them to go to the concerned authority or the courts to get the requisite order. So if you have any questions, please post those questions, and at the end of the session we'll try to answer those. So these are basically the tools to identify the assets here. Forensic audit, I think you're the champions. You can do this. You can do a great justice. You can give a good leads from that. Review of the bank statement that we just mentioned. Document review is also there. Many times when the forensic audit happens, I think I've seen the investigator that do a very good job of identifying the money transactions. But what I see is basically then the investigator is a little shy in doing the document review. Basically, what are the supporting document they share? I am sure that suppose if a borrower is for 100 crore loan, I'm sure that they will commit some mistake in the documentation, and one falsified information, or probably one submission of the fake information, or there could be some manipulation in the document or the information shared with the bank, and that is enough. In fact, I mean, that one information, if you can identify in your report, and then you can place that or probably submit that in your report, I think that would be very helpful. The moment they go to the concerned police officials with the complaint, that police officers would be in a position to help that particular client and say that, okay, fine, and you have some element of the criminal element in this particular case, we will not mind in registering the case and will try to help you out. If you don't have that, and then the law enforcement agencies are helpless, they may not be able to do that. And I'm sure that if you do this job, I think you do deep dive or review these documents submitted, the supporting document, I'm sure that there are chances that you will get or probably identify some kind of forgery or falsification of documents or the information. And review of the sale dates. Many times when we accept, basically when the sale dates are available, I think that many a time, in fact, when we do asset tracing, we get one sale date of a particular property. For example, there is a declared property. You go to that particular authority and say that we want the document of this particular property. He will immediately give, because there's a public domain information. You pay the required fees. That is available. And if you carefully read that particular sale deed, you can get a lot of leads there, because the person will be giving the previous address in that particular sale deed. In one case, we remember we backtracked 4 different properties, going backwards 4 different sale deeds. So that is possible. And sometimes you have to also use a judgment. For example, if a particular borrower, or in fact he has bought a land, or probably you identify some land and you see that, okay, he has actually constructed a school in a particular area in the upcountry or outskirts of a particular city, and he is in fact has you identified only 1 acre property. And if you suppose if you are building a 200 crore school, I mean, what is one acre property then? I mean, nobody can deploy that kind of funds in 1 acre property, correct? The school requires huge land. Then you have to use your experience, intellect here, and say that okay, fine. Then there are all chances that the adjoining properties of particular land which you are not aware, those must be surely belonging to him, because he will not buy 1 acre property for developing or probably building a school for any industry or a plant or whatever it is. Then we should use our experience and intellect here, and then try to develop the information and try to corroborate or probably gather the information of other properties also. I'm sure that in one case we have done this kind of exercise, and we'll share that example here, and we have traced hundreds and thousands of properties in that particular case. We'll talk about that case study in the subsequent slide. Then we can also talk about forensic review of digital record. I mean, this is a very hardcore evidence. I mean, you get all the information if you're doing the digital imaging and review. And then telephone number. I mean, of course, I mean, everybody's on the mobile phone now, but still, in fact, we succeed sometimes because these are basically we always, if you have the number, probably if you don't have the number, do the name search in the directory of the MTNL or the BSNL. And suppose if there are properties registered, you can get the information about that. Mobile number, of course, if the law enforcement agency are investigating that particular case, they can do that. I mean, we as a private person, we don't have the authority or the capability to trace that number. Vehicle number, of course, I mean, I'm not going to talk just about Vahan here. We all know Vahan. I mean, sir, bata to rahe hain, lekin what is Vahan to basic search hai. But as an investigator, we need to take this to the next level. We know that even if you put some number in the Vahan, you can get immediately the information about a particular property or the vehicle. So in fact, one of my team, my previous organizations was working on the ground. In fact, I mean, they had gone to a particular location, and we know that that particular borrower, actually, he was skipping. Skipping means he was absconding, and he was in a particular colony. And my team went there and spoke to the people on the ground, and they were unable to locate that particular person. I mean, nobody was aware because he's new to that particular locality. So I asked my team, and how many such properties are there, or probably the residential bungalows are there in that particular colony? My team reported and said that it could be 35 properties there maybe. I said, go do one thing, go to each house and see which are the vehicles lying in that particular compound and send us the numbers to the office. And they did that. When they sent the numbers, in fact, one number, in fact, from the Vahan, it matched with our target's name, and immediately said, this is the target's home. Do the rest of the things there, and you can go there and probably you can just collect more information. This is the target's house. So, I mean, we have to take it this basic level information to the next level. That really helps. Then Google Maps. I mean, we all use Google Maps when we travel every day. I mean, now we are not traveling since last 1 month. But when we travel, I think we all use Google Map, especially when you're going to the different city or the new location. In fact, there was my team, in fact, working on the ground, and we were actually having a very good lead about a farmhouse of a particular target, very big farmhouse at the outskirts of the city. And nobody was giving information, but nobody was aware. And the public domain searches also did not indicate that information. So, in fact, I told my team, do one thing. We use Google Map very frequently, correct? Put that particular, for example, Rajkumar Srivastav's farms. Put that into the Google Map and let us see whether the Google Map takes you to certain location. And in fact, the team put that, and the Google Map took my team member to that particular location, and that property was traced. And we then tried and got the ownership documents about this. See, we have to understand we are not the law enforcement agencies, but we have certain limitations, and we have to use this kind of various means and techniques to identify the properties and then share with the client. And of course, I mean, if you see in Maharashtra, the records in the sub-registrar's office are available since 2003 onwards. And if you want the previous information, I think they have upgraded now. But I think if you want old records, then you can, I think the property tax record would be useful. You can go to that particular municipality concerned ward officer and probably try to develop or probably get some information about that particular property. Then, of course, I mean, there's a MHADA property, a CIDCO property. They are the authorities. They can share some information here. MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, you all do that. And ROC documents, in fact, if you properly review, and you always begin with this MCA, and I'm sure that everyone gets a lot of leads from here. That's no rocket science here. You all get. And suppose if you are having the income tax returns, for example, if the police is investigating a particular case, if they have the income tax returns, as a chartered accountant, you offer a helping hand to them and say, sir, we are good in reviewing all these things. Please, can we help on behalf of our client? And probably they will help you. They'll be very happy to take your assistance. Please do that. Sales tax department could be one of them. Then public domain searches, social media, we already discussed this. Sorry. Yeah. So now let us talk about some case studies here. So this particular client, in fact, is again, I think is a Mumbai-based client. In fact, this our client, in fact, had given this work to the previous company, and they could identify one property. And actually, we wanted to penetrate in that particular company, and they said, we said that bank, please, I mean, give us some account where actually you have done the work and you did not succeed, or probably, and you have the feeling or hope that there could be a lot of assets here. And the client honored our request. In fact, they gave this work to us, and we, in fact, the default or probably the exposure was 109 crores in this particular case. And we did the work, in fact, on the ground, and we did a lot of work in the public domain as well. And this particular case, in fact, we traced almost 20 properties, and the value of the properties was 223 crores. And if you see this particular case, in fact, the default was only 109 crores. We traced 223 crores property here, all with the ownership evidence. In fact, I think that the bank also demand for the attachment also for these properties. So it is possible. In fact, this is a case I was talking sometime a few minutes ago. In fact, there was some partner litigation happening, and one partner suspected that another partner is a siphon of the funds. In fact, he's created a lot of wealth, or the properties from gotten wealth. And in fact, we use a similar technique we told you some time back. I mean, in that particular case, that there is a property, for example, for a school or industry, 1 acre property, and that could be adjoining property. And we use a similar technique here. And you'll not believe, I mean, using various skills here, we trace, in fact, 3,100 properties along with the ownership or the documentary evidence of the government. So, I mean, this took us almost 4 months to complete the assignment, but it was this was the biggest assignment in our career. In fact, where we help our client. So now, I mean, we are talking about asset tracing. Then, what are the skills required for the asset tracing here? Industry knowledge, access to the relevant databases. You should have the knowledge about what are the relevant databases. Knowledge of forensic audit and accounting. You are the masters. Multilinguistic capability. This is very important. For example, if I'm going to Tamil Nadu, if I want to do some work, I may not succeed there on the ground because I need a local people who can speak fluently or probably good in Tamil. Only I think then I can succeed, even though I have a good investigation skills. I'm a very well connected person, because if I'm going and doing that work, I may not succeed there because language is a barrier as far as states like Tamil Nadu are concerned. You will not get, because there are n number of cases. In fact, we have to take the help or the assistance of the local people in those geographies. Geographic knowledge and global outreach is very important, because that is also important. We have to not only do the asset tracing, because nowadays, I mean, the exposures are big. The clients expect us to, in fact, do some work in outside India also. In one of the cases, in fact, we help our client where we trace some assets in the Southeast Asian country using our resources there. The specialized skill sets and availability of the trained resources. This is very important. Of course, I mean, everybody doesn't have the trained resources, but we have to develop and then do that work. What is asset recovery? Asset recovery is a task of recovery of assets that have been wrongfully taken, either stolen fraudulently, misappropriated, or otherwise disposed of to remove them from the rightful owner. And in the context of the company undergoing bankruptcy or liquidation, asset recovery is the process of maximizing the value of liquidating assets and inventory. So it has three main elements: identification, redeployment, and disinvestment. So let us talk what are the various asset recovery options here. So one is basically discussing with the internal employees where probably they have committed the fraud. That could be one. Internal investigation could be second internal option. Arbitration mechanism is a very good thing. Again, I mean, unless you go with the asset information, the arbitrator may not be in a position to help you. Then criminal remedy. What are the options before filing the FIR and after filing the FIR? Then attachment of the property of person absconding. What are those options? What are the options in MOCA? You must have heard about MOCA, probably must have seen in Bollywood movies. MOCA is basically the Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act. MPID, we all talk about these Ponzi schemes, and there are a lot of cases across India, including Maharashtra and Mumbai, and this is very rampant. And we have the new law also, MPID, not really new, but I think where basically it empowers the police to in fact see the assets of the people who committed the fraud. Then there are also options of civil remedy, enforcement of decrees issued by the foreign courts. That is one. We have just discussed this. Then bankruptcy laws here. Then market intelligence. So let us move on to the next slide. Asset recovery if the employees committed the fraud. So when you know that an employee has committed a fraud, I think first, what you should do is basically you should avoid confrontation with the employee. But the moment you confront, try to, do that, there could be a lot of problem then. I think best is basically first you conduct the basic review or the preliminary review, some experts in the company, and find out, what is the extent of fraud and whether and who else is involved in this particular fraud. You may not be doing a full-blown investigation here, but at least gets a sense of that particular thing. Then suppose if you feel that okay, we should, instead of doing this kind of the investigation to spend time or probably effort on that, if you want to avoid that, probably you can discuss with the employee. This is, I'm just saying, it could be a very best case scenario. It may not be always a very conducive environment to do this kind of work. Involve the reporting manager or peers to have the discussion. And if you suppose if we can channelize the discussion to his reporting manager or some peers, I think that would be the great opportunity to do that. But ensure that always, sometime we have seen that investigation, usually the seniors are also involved in the particular fraud. If you involve the fraudster's boss, who is also a fraudster, then I think that thing becomes very difficult. You may not succeed. Be ready with a list of assets, immobile and mobile, and asset in the value. That is very important here. And in fact, the delinquent employee shows willingness, then be reasonable while recovering the losses. Sometimes people say, yes, sir, I have committed the fraud. I'm able to pay I want to pay back the money to the company. But you should know how much money he has. For example, he has committed a fraud of 10 crore rupees. And now he has only, for example, 1 crore. And your market intelligence as well as asset tracing also shows that. Then you don't insist for 100% recovery. Sometimes you do 100%. You always insist for 100%, but you may not always succeed. Because many people invest in various properties. People sometimes have various vices, they spend that money. And if you are actually then barking on a wrong tree, probably you will not succeed to recover that particular money. Let me share one example, a very interesting example here. This was basically employee fraud. This employee was a second generation employee working for this particular company, and this company was dealing the expensive watches and operating from a 5-star hotel. And this, in fact, this employee was completely trusted by the management, and he was in fact given full power. And this guy was actually selling those expensive watches, which was costing almost 1 crore and 2 crore rupees watch. You can understand the Rolex watch. It starts from 1 crore and it goes up to, I think, 2 to 3 crores also. And this guy was selling those watches and not recognizing the revenue. And one fine day, in fact, the chartered accountants like you, in fact, they came for the audit and they found something fishy and they informed management. And the chartered accountants requested this particular guy and said that please share with us the bank statement. He did not share for 3-4 days. Again, they insisted and he was avoiding. And finally, after a week, he got those bank statement, hard copies, and it was all manipulated. When they were already doubting, and when they careful analysis, when they did the careful analysis, they found out that there is some manipulations in the bank statement. So then that is how we stepped in and we conducted the inquiry and then found out that there is some issues here. When we conducted the background checks as well as we spoke to the people on the ground, and sometimes you get some very good information, small lead also that will really help. When the disk imaging and analysis was in fact was in progress, in fact, we found one mail from a 5-star hotel to this particular employee whose salary was only 20,000 rupees, and they are saying that okay, dear valued customer, we are happy to be associated with you. So you being the privileged customer for us, we are offering you the free stay in a 5-star hotel. I don't want to name the hotel. It is in Mumbai, in fact. And you'll not believe and why this mail should come and why you should be privileged customer. That should be the trigger basically for any investigator. And we started doing the deep dive. And in fact, we found out that this person, in fact, you'll not believe. And we also did the interviews of this particular person. What can you believe? What could be his? What was his basically the bill for the entire year he has spent for that in the hotel? You'll not believe he has spent 60 lakh rupees on that hotel, as a 60 lakh in a year. And in fact, you'll be surprised to know that his per day expenses was 2 lakh rupees per day. And he was splashing that money on, and he was frequenting various ladies' dance bars, and he was splashing the money on the girls. So can you understand? These kind of things are there, which are very prevalent in the industry. So this is one great example of that particular case. This is a very good case, a big case. I don't want to discuss into detail. But as far as asset tracing is concerned, he has not invested in any assets. He had only bought one property for his parents, in fact, and that was in management was a little concerned for his parents. They did not go for any action, but of course, they filed the FIR against this particular guy. So internal investigations to gather, do the review investigation, gather the evidence beyond reasonable doubt. You try to gather oral evidence, gather documentary evidence and circumstantial evidence. Then do the market intelligence as well. Then finally talk to the people. You can see always interviews or the discussion. And in fact, sometimes there are cases, in fact, I had done one interview, suspect interview. There were 2 interviews. I will not go into detail because I usually talk on the topic how to conduct the successful interviews without using any force or violence. So in that particular case, in which there are 2 senior people, in fact, they had accepted kickbacks or the bribe from the contractor. In that particular case, there was no evidence. Only the whistleblower said that there is actually a kickback angle here. And by doing a tactful interrogation, both these employees admitted, and they gave that money back to the company. So now, what are the criminal options of recovering the money? Let me be very clear. When you're going to the police, don't expect police to be the recovery. They can help you with the recovery. It is not their job. Their job is to basically conduct the investigation, find out the evidence, and submit the charge sheet before the court of law. However, there are some exceptions where they have the power, or probably they are empowered to recover those assets, or probably seize or attach those assets. But otherwise, we should not be filing or probably expecting any kind of means or resort from the police that they would be helping you by going beyond their in fact scope and invite problem for themselves and for yourself. They will not do that, and we should not expect also. And there is always expectation that police may complaint file ke ho jayega kaisa. No, nahi ho sakta hai. There has to be some criminal element in the FIR. When I'm saying criminal element in the FIR or the complaint, I'm not saying that you have to create that. There has to be naturally, you have to identify from that investigation. Don't create, don't falsify. And this is my clear instruction, I can say, or probably my submission to everyone. Don't try to create the false or misleading information in your complaint so that your complaint is entertained by the police. Police are very smart. When they conduct an investigation, they will come to know that this is actually manipulation by us. And submitting the false information to the police is also a criminal offense. We should avoid this. But of course, when you are submitting the complaint, the police may not immediately register the case because there are some Supreme Court guidelines. They have some time to verify the facts given in the case, whether it is a cognizable or non-cognizable case. Police will verify that. And they will try to call you for first. In fact, you have to diligently participate, find out the time, and educate the police officer, because every fraud is new for that particular police officer. You think the industry expert, you know what are the nuances of that particular industry and what is the fraud angle in this particular case. You have to educate them how this fraud is committed. In fact, what is the modus operandi, what are the guidelines for the regulators, and how it is actually breach of those guidelines of the regulatory guidelines. In fact, you have to educate that first. And similarly, on the basis of that, the police officer, investigating officer may also call the opponent or the borrower or the fraudster. They will inquire him and they will try to figure out what it is. In the meanwhile, when the person will come to know that some action is going to happen against me, so probably he may come to you for the settlement. But again, don't involve police in the settlement process. It could be if the person is scared, he will come and talk to you. But don't tell police, sir, usko bula ke boli settlement karo. No, the police will not do settlement for you. Be clear. Then diligently participate in inquiry, educate them, and sorry. Yeah, and also always insist for the full recovery when the things are actually investigations in progress. You can insist for the full recovery again during the discussion without involving police here. So that is possible. But in such cases, my recommendation is always try to be flexible. So the party was committed fraud. His intention is always not good to give the 100% money back. If he's scared, definitely he'll give. But I think you have to be a little flexible. If you are very adamant that mera itna paisa hai, mujhe itna hi chahiye, usually practically it doesn't happen. I have seen in hundreds of cases this will not happen like that. And once you file the FIR, I think you should be ready with the list of assets. See, again, the law enforcement agencies, in fact, may not be well equipped to identify the assets and all. Of course, I mean, during the investigation, they'll find out. But once the FIR is filed, the police, in fact, get the powers to go and search the places. The search and seizure powers are only with the police after registration of the FIR. Till that time, they will not conduct that. But in the meanwhile, suppose if you are going, the police will definitely record your complaint, which should be FIR. You'll come to know. But I think in the meanwhile, you should be ready with the list of the assets which you have. Police may want, once you provide that list to the police, they may want to conduct the raids in all those places and try to get some evidence on those things. You should be then, I think, ready with that particular list. Okay. So let us see civil remedies here. So section order 21 rule 1 civil procedure code is say that provide the modes of paying the money decree. First, the code appropriate the amount toward the interest, and thereafter the towards the cost, and thereafter toward the principal also. Also provide made for executing the decrees. And implementation of a decrees of a specific performance of a permanent injunction, restitution of conjugal rights and possession, etc. Let me show you an example here, very interesting here. In fact, there was one guy, in fact, I don't want to name him. He's basically yesteryear director and producer, very known name in the Bollywood. He's absconding, he's out of the country now. And in fact, he has basically cheated a lot of parties in India, especially he, under the pretext of making a movie, he used to then call the investors. What basically his modus operandi is basically he signs basically the top stars. I don't want to name superstar, who is that superstar, one of the superstars. He signed with him for that particular movie and said that, okay, fine, we organize a launch party, and he invited the investors, the potential investors who wanted to invest in that particular movie. And that particular superstar came for that particular party, and this guy, the fraudster, introduced to everyone that superstar and said that, sir, these are the investors, these people are actually going to invest in this particular movie. And when this and he in fact has also entered into a contract with that particular superstar, and he had paid the signing amount also, and which was quite visible. That was not fraud, in fact. And everybody believed that such a big film star actually had come and signed this particular movie, so this movie is going to happen. And in fact, this guy never completed that movie, and he has a history, not even one, but in the past also other movies also is not completed. He just take the money, escape out of the country. When our party, in fact, our client went to the court, and court said, fine, we'll pass the decree in your favor, but you have to find out what are the assets in his name. Court is not going to do that. Then this party, in fact, came to us, and we identified those assets for him, and then we gave the ownership evidence to this particular party. Basis that he went to the court and obtained the decree from that particular court. But unfortunately, this guy is absconding out of the country. So there are remedies. In fact, Order 21, Rule 42 of the CPC Civil Procedure Code, which also talks about the messenger profit from the rent and all those things. I think that can also be awarded to the affected party here. Attachment of the movable property other than agricultural produce. There are agricultural land and agricultural produce that may not be attachable, but yeah, definitely other movable properties court can attach in civil litigations. Then asset recovery, then criminal remedy, seizure of assets here. Police has the powers in certain cases. For example, if you see section 102 CRPC, here the police can recover the assets, but of course, again, not the immovable asset. They have only the powers to recover the movable assets. Here again, there is a Supreme Court judgment, which I don't want to go there. The Supreme Court also clarified that police can only recover the movable assets. But if the person is absconding from a particular case, in that particular case, the police has the powers to, I mean, I will not go into detail. There are some conditions here, and what condition the police can attach that particular property. But if absconding, police can attach those properties of that criminal. Then Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act, again, there are the provisions in here. Basically, the people are committed to fraud. The police, in fact, can attach those particular properties by taking the special court order, and all movable properties, immovable, whatever they belong to him. And during the trial, or probably during the course of trial, they can attach all those properties. And once that trial is confirmed, or when the conviction is confirmed, those properties can be forfeited to the state government here. Then Maharashtra Protection of Interest of the Deposit here. Again, here the police have the powers to attach all kind of properties here. I will not go into the details here. And there are a number of cases across India, including Maharashtra. The best cases, the biggest case is City Limousine case, and there are many other cases, in fact, in Maharashtra or Mumbai. Then, of course, if there is a Prevention of Corruption Act case, in fact, for the public servant, there are provisions under the criminal law amendments 1944. Again, the investigation officer can attach those assets through the help of government as well as the court, through the court. Avoid wrongful means of recovery and risk. This is again, they always completely say no, because I have seen, in fact, there are some recovery agents with dubious background. Never you should hide this kind of people or associate with them, because they will always create a problem for themselves as well as for us also. I have seen some in financial institutions of the people, in fact, who are actually facing the dispute, use some bouncers. When they bouncer, they go there, their display of their health itself actually sometimes create a lot of very bad image of that particular company. People sometimes go with the criminal background also. That is not again a very good thing. You should not avoid the people, for example, the people of third gender, basically eunuchs. That will not be very good idea to do that, because there are some judgments also about the from the various courts. In fact, they pass strictures against the concerned institution that they should avoid, or they should avoid this kind of thing. And suppose if you are going beyond this and you are trying to these kind of resorts, adopting this kind of resort, then probably we have seen some cases across India. The people, in fact, who are actually cheated the bank or the financial institute, they in fact have filed the complaints of extortion, wrongful confinement, wrongful restraint, kidnapping, defamation cases, and cases of civil ranks against the lenders. In fact, lenders should have filed the complaint, but the procedure was not followed properly. Here the case was reversed. In fact, the fraudsters or the people actually who have committed fraud, they have filed the cases against the lenders. Of course, insolvency and bankruptcy court, this is a very good option here. Anyone can go, corporate persons, partnership firms, and individuals. And this is a time-bound manner for the maximization of value of the asset of such provisions here. The key objective of IBC was basically for the banks to work out a new and timely recovery procedure to be adopted by the banks, financial institutions, individuals. I have deliberately, if you see my slide here, in the red, actually I just really mentioned it is always the companies go bankrupt and not the individuals. Whenever I go to the client and talk to my client, I always say this statement to them. I have seen I have almost worked on 500 plus assignments till now, but I have never seen a case. There could be possibility in the industry, but whatever the cases I have dealt, I have never seen a single borrower where the company must have gone bad, but he has never gone bad. He and his family members are enjoying a lavish lifestyle. There is no compromise in their lifestyle. They're all good, and there is always a lot of assets here. So in fact, basically what my message is, if you identify these kind of assets and you give this information to the client, I think that would really help. Many a times, what I suggest to my clients is basically, for example, what they do is basically, they always tell the client always tell us, borrower is saying they don't have the money, they lost everything. So then we always say, okay, fine, sir, you call them after 1 month and confront with a report. In the meanwhile, take the undertaking from them, the borrower, in writing that there are no assets in my name and in the name of my immediate family member. And once that false declaration is given to the bank, call after 1 month and confront with the asset. And just tell him that last time you said that there are no assets in your name, but we have found out these are the document evidences for your assets. Then he's completely on the back foot. Probably you may not need to go to the concerned court or the arbitration mechanism or anywhere. He may say, fine, sir, I mean, let us talk about one-time settlement now. So this information puts your client in a very strong negotiation power. You have to always think about this. So I will not go into the insolvency resolution process, the timeline, what is required, what are the steps here. Then IBC is a boost for the recovery of the assets here. Basically, is doing a very good results. In fact, there are some 56% cases resolved from the NCLT, 33% from the SURFACE Act, and 8% were DRTs, debt recovery tribunals, and 3% from the via local adalats. There are some other legislations also. SURFACE Act, I mean, this is again very commonly used by the banks. Then recovery of debts due to banks and financial institutions Act 1993. And this, if you see section 31B, it says that always priority to the secured creditors. So there are some other stakeholders also, but it is always priority is given to the secured creditors as far as this is concerned. So there are some remedies for the employees here. Recovery from the money due from the employer, or where the money is due from employer, I mean, he's not giving. I think these cases would be very rampant or probably in a large scale after this COVID now. Already started, people have gone to the courts and they're filing the complaints against or the cases against the employer for not paying the money. I think these are some recovery options in this particular case, the act also. This is basically Maharashtra Recognition of Trade Unions MRTU Act. Then central laws, I mean, there are various central laws. There are 144 central laws. And if you only talk about the Wages Act, there are some other acts like the Equal Remuneration Act, 1976, Minimum Wages Act, the Payment of Bonus Act, the Payment of Wages Act. And where employees can approach, they can go to the Labour Commissioner, Civil Court, NCLT. This is very landmark. In fact, the option here, basically, if you see in the month of February, the Indian government has, in fact, signed a treaty with the UAE government. And you all know that there are a lot of, there are billions of Indians working in UAE. And in fact, there are some Indians also, in fact, who are doing businesses there. And some Indians, they have that sometimes they commit fraud or probably they, in fact, default. And the law is very strict there. And they were till now, they were helpless. They were unable to recover the money because the people, in fact, they come to the airport, the fraudster, they will leave the car there at the airport and just go to the flight and come back to India. Once they come to India, there is no chance of recovering the money. But now the government has issued this gazette and it says that there's a treaty between us and the UAE. And if the UAE courts like federal court, federal Supreme Court or federal first instance court, or there is various local court which are on the slide at present, if these court issue the decree in the name of the Indian court, the respective jurisdiction, that Indian court can issue the order of recovery or pass a decree to recover the money or the property, attach the property of the fraudster in India. So this is the new notification. There are a lot of talks. In fact, there are a lot of discussions happening on this particular solution. And in fact, we are also doing a lot of work on this. And probably I think there will be some good time. And I think we'll be in a position to help our clients abroad also. So basically, I just mentioned about, I spoke about this process here. So that is all from my side. I think if my request to my colleague Suprabhat, if you want to add something here. Hi, Suprabhat. Vaibhav, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, Suprabhat, do you want to add something?
In the meanwhile, Mishra ji, can you put the questions to Rajkumar ji, wherever the questions, if they have come? Mishra ji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So there is a question here. Is there any way to recover the shares dematted by a fraudster and appropriated by opening a fake demat account? The fraudster could have sold those shares so acquired in his demat account fraudulently. What is the recourse for recovery? See, if the shares are sold, then there are chances are remote of recovery here. But of course, I mean there are some properties like gold, jewelry, and all ornaments, which is some movable property. If that is in fact disposed of, then still there are chances the police can still recover that particular property as far as the investigation is concerned by identifying the people actually where he has sold. But as far as the cash is concerned or this kind of properties are there, it may not be possible for police to recover the money. Of course, if there's some money lying in the demat account, then police can freeze that account by using various channels, for example, section 102 CRPC and all, or probably taking the help of the court. But let me tell you one thing, if there are some assets where police is helpless to attach those assets because they don't have the powers, in such cases, I think you should immediately go to the civil court, and there is no bar in filing two cases. You can either file the civil court or you can file the criminal case as well as the civil case simultaneously. There is no bar on that. So there is a second question. Sorry.
Yeah, that is starting in next 2-3 minutes. The next session is starting in 2-3 minutes. Okay, you can go on to the third question, Rajkumar ji.
Yeah, when will fine. Is it possible to take help of enforcement directorate while doing the investigation for a client? See, enforcement directorate will come into the picture whenever there is a criminal case registered. So you don't have to do that. Suppose if there is a criminal case registered and that is available in the public domain, the suo motu, the enforcement directorate register the cases. They can conduct the inquiries on your application, but immediately they will not conduct. They may not register the case under the enforcement directorate. That is my understanding. But definitely, I mean, they may not go for the criminal case immediately. So the another question is basically there are three partners in a partnership firm. Of one of the partner does fraud by borrowing money in the name of the firm from NBFC, and business payment default by forging signature of other two parties. There is scope in law which safeguard other two partners, which are the remedies available to them. Yeah, definitely. If the one partner is committed forgery by signing other by committing the forgery in the signatures of other partners also, then there are chances that police may definitely spare you. But we have to also see this. If suppose if you are the beneficiary or the recipient of this crime proceed, then you have to explain to the police or convince the police that why this money because you should have questioned your partner. So we have not, I mean, applied for this kind of loan. How this money has come to us, or probably why, I mean, you are sharing that crime proceed with us. If suppose if you are beneficiary, then probably then again that's a matter of investigation to look into your innocence, whether you are really innocent or not. Then the first question is basically what are the IPC and CPC provisions of keeping an accused under custody if charge sheet is filed and not filed within 90 days of FIR. So basically it is 60 days. Police can always go for the 90 days above they are doing the investigation, but they are unable to complete the investigation for some reasons. So they have to record the reasons in writing and convince the court that we need 3 more months to file the charge sheet here. So there are provisions here, but I think there is again, I mean, there is no bar that the court, in fact, if you file the charge sheet, the court may probably grant the bail to the accused, or probably when he is in the custody, even if you don't file the charge sheet, the court has the powers to decide the cases on the merits. Every case differs from merit. I mean, the merit of every case differs from case to case. So there are various things basically the courts take into account before granting or denying the bail. One has to keep that in mind. So any other questions?
No, sir.
Thanks a lot for patient hearing. I mean, for these brilliant questions. Happy to, I mean, do more sessions with WIRC. And thank you, my colleague Murtuza and other dignitaries of WIRC for giving this opportunity to come and share my experiences. Hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Rajkumar ji. First of all, it is great that you spent 18 years of your life with the police force and then with some of the firms, and it very clearly shows the type of experience, and you could give your practical experiences here. I also now recognize presence of my regional council colleagues, CA Jayesh Kala, and I request Jayesh Bhai to present a hearty vote of thanks for this session. Jayesh Bhai, over to you. Jayesh Bhai, you are on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Murtuza bhai. I believe Rajkumar ji has given a wonderful presentation, and most important factor in the forensic audit or in any case of investigation is finally locating the asset, because if anybody has been encountered with forensic or with fraud, then the most important part is not to although it is to identify the fraudster, but most important is to recover the asset, and that is the theme what Rajkumar ji has delivered, and he has indeed given a full justice to the session, and we heartily thanks on behalf of WIRC and entire committee members. Thanks Rajkumar ji for giving the wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jayesh. My pleasure.
Thank you. So with that, then we move on to the next session, that is on MLI. And we have the learned speaker for the next session, CA Ronak Doshi, with us. Jayesh Bhai, may I request you to please introduce the next speaker?
Yeah, sure, Murtuza bhai. Ronak Doshi is a chartered accountant with more than 16 years of experience. He has also completed Advanced Diploma of International Tax from Chartered Institute of Tax, UK. He is partner with Bansi Mehta and Company Chartered Accountant, having office at Mumbai and Delhi. He practices in the area of direct tax advisory, representation before tax authorities, including CIT appeal, DRP, and ITAT at various benches across India. He briefs senior counsel for direct tax matters, before Tribunal, High Court, and Supreme Court. He also practices in international tax advisory and also transfer pricing for various corporate clients. He is part of International Tax Committee of Chamber of Tax Consultants. He speaks at various professional forums on above subjects. So I request Ronak ji to kindly start the session. Over to you, Ronak ji.
Ronak, over to you. Ronak, you are on mute, I think. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Jayesh ji. Thank you, Murtuza ji. And good afternoon once again to all my colleagues and friends who are on this webinar right now. Are you able to view my screen? Just wanted to check that. My presentation.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, sir.
Yeah, it is okay.
Okay. So I think we have got a very good start to this webinar, I think, by the earlier two speakers. And I think, as rightly said, this is a separate topic altogether from the first two sessions. And so the topic for next 1 hour is going to be the overview of multilateral instrument. And I would just like to give a background for 5-10 minutes. And then I would go on to the nuances of the multilateral instrument, and at the end probably address some of the issues of 195, with which we as a chartered accountant probably who practice issuance of form 15 CB etc., or even provide some advisory may take care of. So as the topic is, what is a multilateral instrument and what is the background, from where does this MLI arise, or what are the transaction or the background based on which this arose. Now traditionally the businesses which we all know from earlier days were all a traditional business where a person used to have a physical presence. Over a period of time, and in fact if one really sees the last 10 to 15 years, the mode and the method of doing the business has changed. Today the businesses can be operated across the globe without having any physical presence. When one sees a multinational company today doing business across the globe, it is very easy or convenient, or maybe I would put it that there were some tax loopholes where a company, say situated in US, would thereafter do business in India, but without having any physical presence. It may create a structure outside India, maybe in any favorable countries like say Ireland or Netherlands, etc. So there were a lot of loopholes in the existing tax laws, also in the existing double tax avoidance agreement, which enabled the companies to plan their affairs in such a manner that that they could really either pay no or negligible tax. So that gave rise to a concept which was known as a base erosion and profit shifting. So base erosion and profit shifting was a term which was coined by OECD, where it, as you see in the presentation now, it clearly refers to the tax avoidance strategies that exploit the gaps, that exploits the gaps between the various tax laws and the tax treaties, and which enable them to artificially shift the profit to low or no jurisdiction. Now, the entire exercise began in 2013, when first time OECD came together, and along with G20, they decided that how do you address these issues, these concerns, and basically they, they divided this concern into 15 action plans. So there were 15 identified objectives or action points, where they identified few things which gave rise to tax avoidance because of the treaty loopholes, few things which according to them gave rise to tax avoidance but which could be part of a domestic legislation, and there were few things, other things like exchange of information or avoiding harmful tax practices, etc. So broadly speaking, this action 15 are divided into this following. So first is at action plan 1. I'll just take 2 minutes on this before I move on to the action plan 15, which is the topic for today. So first is the action plan 1, which is digital economy. Now, over past 2-3 years, we all have been hearing that Amazon's or maybe the Facebook or the Google, the entire world is grappling as to how to tax such companies which virtually pay less than 5% or even lower than that taxes. So they have come out with the action plan 1, where presently it's still under deliberation and finalization. But one of the offshoot for of action plan which in India we have implemented is, say, equalization levy. So say action plan 1 covers digital economy. Then there are certain other action plans like hybrid mismatch, control foreign company rules, interest deduction, harmful tax practices. Then among the important things as a part of MLI is preventing treaty abuse and avoidance of permanent establishment status. Then there are 3 action plan which deal with the transfer pricing, which basically point out or deliberate upon one fact that it was very easy for corporates to house their IPs in countries where the tax would be very low or they had a preferential tax regime, though the value of the entire IP would be captured somewhere else. So basically action plan 8 to 10 cover that, and there are remaining action plans which are for transparency like disclosure. How do you monitor the entire BAPS action plan? Then action plan 13 is the CBCR, country by country, and the master file reporting, which is part of transfer pricing document, and India has already implemented that. Action plan 14 is the mandatory dispute resolution, for which I will speak later, where India has a great reservation. And ultimately the question arose as to, though we have identified this 15 or 14 points which may give to tax arbitrage or lead to tax avoidance strategies, how do we implement this? So as we all are aware, today each country, say India today may have a tax treaty with say 90 countries. Other countries correspondingly will have tax treaty with other 1,000 countries. So today the question arose as to how do we implement this, because as one knows, under the Indian Income Tax Act itself, say under section 90 subsection 2, the law is very clear that the provisions of the treaty or the act, whichever is more beneficial, will apply. So even if today India were to make some domestic changes, unless the treaties of India would not change, a non-resident or a foreign company which is residing abroad and with which the country with which India has a treaty with, that company will have no impact as long as the treaty is unchanged. Therefore, there was a discussion between the OECD and the G20 members, and there was a common consensus as to, let us make an instrument, okay, which would at one go probably giving flexibility to each country, but amend all the treaties, okay, with that country wants and with that country notifies. So therefore action 15, which is a multilateral instrument, okay, that was the birth of a multilateral instrument coming in, whereby it was an instrument, a convention, which was which was drawn upon, where each country was given an option that once you are part of an MLI, you ratify an MLI, then with whichever countries you want, you can decide which of the articles will apply. So that gave rise to the concept of MLI. So as we said, MLI is a multilateral convention. It is not a bilateral like an existing double tax avoidance agreement, and an MLI has to be read alongside an existing treaty. So this is very important for all of us to understand that with MLI coming into force, which I'll come later and explain, it does not mean that one has to ignore the existing double tax avoidance agreement which India has entered with respective countries. The way I look at it is, one has to read the MLI along with the existing DTAA and apply it together. Thus, MLI is not an amending protocol which will directly amend the tax treaty. It is not an a la carte instrument. Now, by this, what I mean is that once a country decides that the particular articles of MLI will apply, then that has to apply for all the countries which have been notified by that country. Say, for example, India today has notified all the 90 countries with which it has a treaty. Now, thereafter, it has decided which articles of MLI it will apply. Then that articles will apply sacrosanct to all the countries with which India has made a list of notification. Now the MLI, as we said, does not cover all the action plan or all the tax avoidance strategies identified, but mainly addresses this 4 action plans. One is hybrid mismatch arrangements. Okay. Second is prevention of treaty abuse. Third is action plan 7, which is known as avoidance of a permanent establishment status. And fourth is action 14, improving the dispute resolution. Now, when the OECD, G20, and other countries came together, while everyone identified the problems, okay, they were very clear in the mind that, look, all what we suggest is not going to be implemented by everyone. But there were certain critical aspects which they all agreed on, which they said is a minimum standard. So a minimum standard is a provision under the entire Action Plan 15, under the MLI, under the BEPS regime, where a country who signs an MLI will have to mandatorily comply with the minimum standard. So say, for example, I have 5 or 10 choices, okay, to address the tax avoidance strategies or tax avoidance mechanisms. Now, there may be few things which I may do domestically. There may be few things which I may do only by way of amending my treaty. But even when I'm amending the treaty, I may have a choice. But for things which are listed as a minimum standard, a country has to compulsory apply it. So in the example, in case of our case, that is India, Article 6 is a minimum standard which everyone applies. Now, Article 14 was also a minimum standard, or is a minimum standard, but today India has decided that it has a reservation. It will not apply Article 14, and OECD has given a leeway by saying that, okay, a party to an MLI cannot adhere to a minimum standard provided it takes its effort bilaterally to ensure that it complies with the minimum standard. So that will be part of the OECD review later, maybe next year, whenever the review takes place, where OECD will review as to if India did not apply for the for the minimum standard of Article 14, how it is still complying with the minimum standard. So therefore, MLI ultimately is an outcome of OECD. Single instrument will now lead to change in 3,000 tax treaties across the globe. So it's one negotiation, one signature, and once India ratifies, it directly gives an amendment to all the 90 treaties which are listed by India. So these are the important concepts when which one deals with MLI. The concept being, when does this MLI come into effect? Entry into force of the MLI, entry into effect qua India and the respective country. Then what is a term known as a cover tax agreement? Then what are the compatibility clauses? What is reservation and what is notification? Now, I will try and address each of them in later part of my presentation and talk today. So the most important aspect of MLI as a MLI instrument or MLI convention, if I say, is that when does it come into force? Now, there is a bare MLI convention. There is an explanatory statement of MLI. There is each country's position. So these are the 3 essential documents, apart from others which I will come to later, which are available on the OECD website, and one can go there easily and have access to that and read it. So like a typical treaty today which we have, say for example, there is a treaty between India and UK, or say India and Singapore. When one reads the treaty, there are different articles. Say Article 2 is definition, Article 4 is residential status, Article 5 may be permanent establishment, and there are Article 30, 31 or 29 which takes into account when does the treaty become effect. Accordingly, under MLI also, Article 34 and 35 deal with when the MLI comes into force. So there are 2 concepts, and this is very relevant. One is a concept known as entry into force, and one is a concept of entry into effect. So entry into force, okay, is when does the instrument, which is globally agreed by everyone, come into the force. So there they have provided that the entry into force of the MLI convention, which is a general document, will come into force when fifth nation gives acceptance by way of ratification, acceptance or approval. So as you see the timeline in the presentation before you, now India had signed the MLI, okay, provisionally on 7th of June 2017. Now the 5 countries which are Australia, Isle of Man, Jersey, Poland and Slovenia, the 5th country being Slovenia has signed and ratified the MLI and submitted it on 22nd March 2018. So now the provision when one reads Article 34 says that the MLI will come into force for other countries which are after this 5th country makes a deposit of ratification is 1st of the month after expiry of 3 calendar months from the day when the 5th country deposited. So if you see the table today, it clearly shows that if Slovenia has deposited or ratified on 22nd March, let us count 3 calendar months after this 22nd March, which would be June, July and August, which will be June, July and August, and first of the day after that, so which would really be July 1, 2018. And so entry into force of this MLI for other nations is with effect from July 1, 2018. Now India itself has notified this on 1st October 2019. So today, insofar as MLI is concerned, for international public laws and for other countries, it has an effect from July 1, 2018. And for India has notified the same in October 2019. So now if you really see, if one really sees the 1 minute, I think. One minute, I'm having some technical problem.
क्या हुआ सर?
एक मिनट, मेरा स्क्रीन प्रेजेंटेशन मुझे दिख नहीं रहा है मेरा खुद का. एक मिनट. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So now, insofar as India is concerned, entry into force, as we said, has already happened. Now, once India notifies and submits its notification to the OECD, which we have already done, and we have notified almost all the countries with which India has treaty. So now the question comes as to from which days does India's treaty has to be read alongside the MLI. Now that takes us to Article 35 of the MLI, and Article 35 of the MLI, breaks up two things. It says that entry into effect, okay, is separate for withholding tax purposes, and entry into effect is separate for other taxes. So insofar as entry into effect for withholding tax is concerned, the article of MLI provides that it goes into force from the first day of the next calendar year. Now, for our purposes, since we are in India used to previous year and taxable period, India has opted for taxable period. Now, therefore, once you say the first day of next calendar year today, insofar as India is concerned, if I have ratified and deposited the final instrument in October, the first taxable year which begins in the next next taxable year begins for India is 1st April 2020. Therefore, insofar as India is concerned, for withholding tax purposes, okay, it will have impact from 1st April 2020. I will come to in my later slide as to how for each country the entry into effect will differ. Okay, insofar as other taxes are concerned, it again says expiry of a period of 6 calendar month. So again, insofar as that is concerned, probably insofar as India is concerned, I will say that, look, I will start applying from 1st April 2020. Now here, one important thing which one may notice that while there can be only one entry into force, but there can be multiple entry into effect depending upon my depending upon what is the position and when did the other country which has listed India deposited the ratified instrument. So that is in my next slide. Now here if one sees that yeah, so if one sees today, I have listed down that I have listed down, see, insofar as India is concerned, as I said, our instrument was deposited in June 2019. Now 3 calendar months, first day of the after expiry of 3 calendar months is 1st October 2019, which is the entry into force insofar as India is concerned. Now one has to carefully understand this concept. Now let us take an example of Australia. Now say Australia has deposited it in 26 September 2018, and it came into effect from first for Australia. The first calendar year began thereafter after expiry of 3 months on 1st of Jan 2019. Now for the purpose of deciding the entry into effect insofar as India-Australia treaty is concerned, one has to take the later of the entry into force of both the country. So insofar as Australia is concerned, entry into if force of Australia was 1st Jan, whereas entry into force of India was 1st of October. Now the later of these two date is 1st of October, which is 1/10/2019, and therefore insofar as India is concerned, as we read earlier, for withholding tax purposes, we will say that the first day of the next previous year or next taxable year after the EIE, that is the entry into effect, which in our case becomes 1st April 2020. So therefore that is insofar as Australia. Now let us take another example, say which is at the bottom of the table, say Saudi Arabia. Now insofar as Saudi Arabia is concerned, though India has, let us compare now item number 1, that is India, and item number 15, that is Saudi Arabia. Now if you see Saudi Arabia has also deposited its ratified MLI on 1st of May 2020. It has listed India as one of the country to which with which it wants its treaty to get amended by the MLI. However, there is a difference between the entry into force. India has already done on 1st of October 2019, but Saudi Arabia has done on 1st of May 2020. Now, if I see the later of the board date, it comes to 1st May 2020. Now, insofar as India is concerned, again for withholding tax, we will say after the entry into effect, which is the latest of the board dates, the first previous year. Therefore, insofar as Saudi Arabia is concerned, for withholding tax purposes and for other tax purposes, the India-South African treaty will get amended, will be read with MLI only with effect from 1st April 2021. So like that, one has to find out by seeing that whether the other country has deposited the MLI instrument. Is it a final deposit or a provisional deposit? Because for our purposes, it is only the final deposit instrument which is relevant. And if it is deposited, let us find the date of entry into force of that country, find out the later of both the dates, and thereafter calculate the first calendar year beginning after 6 months. So now, insofar as, let us take example of Russia and Sweden. Now, though these countries, okay, had deposited, there is a provision under the MLI, which, if you see here, in this slide, the last part, that a country even after deposit can make a reservation and clearly indicate to OECD that despite my depositing the MLI, I may have some internal procedure, and therefore I will thereafter notify that from which effect my MLI ratification has to be considered. Therefore, insofar as Russia and Sweden are concerned, though they have deposited the MLI, however, it has not come into force qua India-Russia or India-Sweden treaties, or for that matter, any treaty with which Russia has with other countries or with Sweden. So now we come to a concept, having found out as to or understood as to from which date, the MLI comes into effect for each of the treaties. Okay, now we come to a concept known as a cover tax agreement. Now, up till now, whenever we have been dealing, or anyone who practices or even who has read in theory, we always used to call a agreement between two nations as a double tax avoidance agreement or a double tax avoidance treaty. Now under MLI, they found it more expedient to use the word covered tax agreement. And really, if you ask me, I would only put it this way, that covered tax agreement would really mean that both the countries, if they agree and match and marry everything of each other, it becomes a CTA. So therefore let us see the flowchart. So first question which one needs to answer in the flowchart, okay, is, are both the countries signatory to MLI? Find it whether the answer is yes or no. Now, say for example, we talk of, though I spoke when I started with Amazon, Google, Facebook, etc. Okay, now we all know that most of these countries are definitely the countries which have been the companies which have been incorporated in United States of America. Now USA has not signed the MLI at all. Once it does not sign MLI, US is saying that, look, none of my treaties will ever get impacted by MLI. If I want, I will negotiate independently with each country, but per se I don't want to be a signatory to MLI. So despite participating in the OECD G20 Action Plan BEPS project, US has decided, and so far it has not signed the MLI. So now assume for a moment, now take an example of Singapore. Now say Singapore and India, one has to find out, have both signed MLI? Yes. Have both ratified the MLI? So it means that, have you ratified the instrument, signed it after your local procedures, and deposited the signed ratified instrument to the OECD depository at Paris? So if we say that, okay, I have both the countries, India and Singapore, have ratified, then we find out the dates, as we saw in the earlier slide, as to for both the countries, has it entered into effect? If yes, then I will say, okay, after each country has done everything, then whether it has listed each other. Say for example, insofar as Germany is concerned, though India has notified Germany, but Germany has not notified India. So Germany has signed the MLI, has ratified the MLI, but it has decided, okay, I want only 20 countries and I don't want India to be part of my MLI amendments, and therefore Germany has not listed India. So this also matching has to be done, that whether both countries have, apart from ratification, submitting to OECD, have also listed each other and notified each other's treaty. Once it has notified each other's treaty and the existing DTAA in force, then we are saying that yes, it becomes a covered tax agreement. So one has to every time follow this flow chart and find out as to whether the DTAA, as we presently call, has now become a covered tax agreement, such that the DTAA has to be read with a multilateral instrument. If any of this thing is no in the flowchart, then it does not become a covered tax agreement, but it still continues to be a DTAA, and one will only stand alone look at the DTAA. Now, this is something which I have picked up from the OECD website, and for people who are practicing 15 CB or even advising, OECD website is something which now every day or in usual practice one will have to go through. So let us take few examples on this to understand, and then I will rush upon the other part considering the time. So see, under the MLI matching database of OECD, which you see on the left hand side top, now you may list two countries. Say I have listed India and UAE. Now it gives all the data. When did both of them sign? When did they deposit the instrument? Is the status of deposit definitive or provisional? So that is a distinction if you see between the two parts of the slides up and down. Insofar as UAE is concerned, it has submitted the definitive MLI, and insofar as Greece is concerned, it has only given provisional. Now, once both the countries have submitted this definitive, ratified instrument of MLI, then it becomes a covered tax agreement, right? Insofar as synthesized tax is concerned, I'll just address it in a moment. Then just for a timing, let us go to the next table, which is India, Greece. It is provisional. Now here one has to be careful as well. While OECD is trying its best, but there may be some loopholes even in the OECD, I mean in updating the database. So as we said, this database which I have downloaded is updated as on 20th February 2020. So despite Greece not giving a definitive ratified instrument, it is, I think in my view, wrongly stating that the agreement would be a cover text agreement. In my view, it will not be a cover text agreement till the time definitive instrument has been submitted. Then if you next see India, Germany, again, as I said, India, Germany, India, Switzerland. Now, though it's provisional and definitive, in any event, okay, Germany has not listed India at all. Switzerland has not listed India at all. Therefore, despite everything, India, Switzerland or India, Germany treaties will never get amended for the time being because of the MLI. Now, therefore, that comes to the summarization. So total, India has 93 tax treaties. India has notified everyone, but China has not notified India. So again, India-China treaty will not get impacted. Now, 28 countries whose DTAs are notified by India are not signatories to MLI at all. So as I said today, US, Philippines, Brazil, Thailand. Now they have not even signed the MLI so far. So again, my treaties will not get impacted. Now 5 countries which have signed the MLI but which have not notified India again is Germany, Hong Kong, Mauritius, Oman, Switzerland. And then there are some countries which have which have not yet ratified MLI. Okay, for some countries the date may not have come into effect, and as we said, for Russia and Sweden, they themselves have made a reservation as to the entry into effect. Therefore, for all of us, I think for practically, one has to only now consider for this year, which begins in 2020, 1st April 2020 to 31st March 2021. Insofar as India is concerned, effectively only 28 tax countries, 28 treaties are such or countries where now my position changes and I have to read MLI along with the DTAA. And as we said, because the MLI has been drafted in such a manner that it gives a cooling off period of 6 months in the next taxable year. Therefore, in my view, it may not be required, every time during this financial year to look on the OECD website. For practical purposes, for theory, one may definitely go so that if one sees the position, say next year, on say around in March 2021, then I will update my position and say, okay, now instead of 28, maybe now it is 56 countries with which now next year my treaties will get changed. So now, which are the 28 countries? Which are the countries with effect from April 1, 2020, where the MLI comes into force for India and that country is DTAA. So these are the list of 28 countries, and the countries which are marked yellow are those countries for which there is a synthesized text available on the income tax website, that is incometaxindia.gov.in. Now, at this time, I think I would just address on what is a synthesized text. Now, OECD under the MLI had also recommended, or only it's a recommendation, nothing a mandate by OECD, that if both the countries want, then for ease of implementation, it is possible for countries to make a synthesized text. In plain language, if I would say, it would mean that as I started with, I had to now read for this 28 countries the treaties along with the MLI, and every time see which provisions of the treaties have changed. But if today someone gives me a document where a DTAA interposes, okay, the changes made by the MLI, then I have one single document which I can read and which captures ideally the original DTAA and the changes made by MLI. So really, synthesized text is the merged combination of both, which is very easy for the purpose of a reader to read it rather than keeping it separately. But at the same point of time, I would like to submit that one has to ensure, if you just see this, so synthesized text is a single document a single document for each cover text agreement, which reproduces the text of the CTA, the text of the amendments, the elements of MLI which have impacted the CTA, and the information on the dates on which the provisions of MLI have taken effect to. But please note one thing, that OECD is very clear that synthesized text cannot get a legal recognition. Okay, therefore there is first of all no legal obligation under MLI to develop a synthesized text, and even if there is a synthesized text, it is not a legal binding document. Therefore, it may only be an aid to reading, but one may not rely on it completely. Today, unless Indian government clarifies specifically a mere reliance on a synthesized text on the website and taking a stand may not be legally acceptable in a court of law. Now we come to the third important aspect, or the remaining aspects I would call it of the MLI, that when we say that we are matching, today two people have to match or two countries have to match, there are a lot of things which we see in each other, which is compatibility clauses. On a lighter note, as we see, in any marriage proposal or other engagement which we do professionally as well, when I engage with my client or etc., I would see that whether there are something which I have a reservation as a firm which I will do, I will not do, whether there are some things which I will agree for the opposite party to do, and there are some things which we both will agree. So on a common parlance, these are known as compatibility clauses, reservations, and notifications. So so now, as we said in the beginning, MLI also gives a lot of flexibility to each country, that if today India says that, look, as I just gave you an example, that I have a complete reservation for mandatory arbitration. Therefore, I don't want to any of my treaties to get impacted with that. I have to compulsory whenever there is a dispute between two countries, that I don't want to go to a mandatory arbitration proceedings. So I have a reservation. So similarly, say there is a transparent entities. In India, partnership is a taxable entity. Elsewhere in the world, a partnership may not be a taxable entity. It may be a transparent entity, and partners may be taxed. Now there is an Article 3 on that as well, and India said that I have a complete reservation on that article. Now reservation in a common parlance or common terms for understanding means I have a reservation, so I want to opt out. So I will not agree to that. It means my unwillingness to something. So reservation means a flexibility to opt out. Okay. And really, as I told you, that really it will only be applicable for non-minimum standards. So as I said, that there are non-minimum standards where a country may decide to address and may decide not to address. It's not a minimum standard. Therefore, I may say that, okay, since it's not a minimum standard, say for example, Article 3 on transfer entities, I just want to opt out of it. So none of my treaties will get any amendment because of this. I've opted out completely. Even if the other country would opt in for that non-minimum standard, unless both are matched with each other, it will have no effect or bearing. However, insofar as minimum standard is concerned, as I stated earlier, that generally opt-out is not possible, because then it would defeat the entire purpose. So when today all of us decided, or say OECD countries, G20 decided that, look, out of the 14 things or 10 things which we have identified, we all agree that there are 3 or 4 things which at best, at minimum, we have to do their minimum standard. So that is generally not permissible to opt out. However, it is permissible. However, if the party agree that they will endeavor bilaterally to meet the requirement, then in that event, you may opt out of it. Insofar as now completely opposite of reservation is a notification. So for a common understanding, a notification is something like a opt-in, my willingness. So today I have opted for this provision to apply to my treaties and amend all my treaties along read with MLI. So opt-in is a provision whereby you are willing to, opt for a provision. Again, here, as I said, both countries needs to match each other. Therefore, both parties have to notify the choice of alternative provision. Like say many of the provision under the MLI, say for example, if you address a problem, you have 3 options to address that. Option A, B, and C. Now, generally speaking, except 1 or 2 exceptions are there, but generally speaking, insofar as notification or opt-in provisions are concerned, they will be matched, or it will become a CTI if both the countries notify the same option. So say for example, in one particular case, say for example a dividend, or for say a capital gain change which MLI is bought in, there are 3 options. Now India says I want to go by option A, and Singapore says, sorry, I want to go by option B. Now here, if there is a mismatch between India and Singapore in A and B, again it will have no impact. It will not be a covered tax agreement, and there will be no amendment at all. There is only one article under the MLI, that is on tax credit under Article 5, where there is a leverage given that there are 3 methods: tax credit, elimination of tax credit, giving credit of the taxes paid in other country. And there ultimately each country has been given an option to choose what it is and what to choose, even if the other country selects another option. So but for this I think opt-in also has to be matched. Now, what are the compatibility clauses? Now, as we said, MLI has drafted some different languages, different articles. Now, when would that different languages or different articles, how would it integrate? How it will integrate with the DTAA? Therefore, they have coined as 4 things. Now, either I say that, look, the article under the MLI will now come in place of an existing article. Okay, so it will replace, or it applies to or modifies an existing article, or I will say that, look, particular article of MLI will apply only in absence of something in the existing treaty, or I will say that, look, whether you have or not, so whether if you have in place of or in absence of a particular article of MLI will apply. So in later part of slides, we will look into that as to how does each of these compatibility clauses affect the relationship between 2 countries which have notified and listed each other. So we come to the next slide. So now this, if we see, now say for example in place of, if a particular article of MLI which deals with a particular problem, say for dividend, capital gains, or for permanent establishment, uses the terminology in place of, what is the effect of that? It replaces the existing provision of the DTAA, that is a cover tax agreement. Now, is this notified by both the countries? Yes. If notified by both the countries, then it will have impact and it will get replaced. If there is a notification mismatch where I say yes, other party says no, or if there is no notification by either state, or if there is a reservation by one of the state, then in that impact it will not have an effect. So the same goes in the interest of time. I will just skip the first 3. The same goes for in place of, applies to, modifies, and in absence of. However, in the last category, which is in place of or in absence of, okay, please note this fact that it supersedes even if there is a incompatibility. Now, this will apply majorly in cases where it is a minimum standard. Say for example, treaty abuse is a minimum standard. Not an example, but in fact, sorry, it is a minimum standard. So insofar as treaty abuse is concerned, it is a minimum standard. Every country has to apply it. Therefore, whatever are the articles which deal with treaty abuse, like say for example, we'll come in next slide, as to the preamble of the tax treaty, or something known as a principal purpose test, or a simplified limitation of benefit test. Now, these ones the country notify, whatever is a minimum standard, that will apply irrespective of whether there is any matching or not. So say for example, today India notifies the preamble and Singapore notifies preamble, matched, fine. Now, out of the other options for treaty abuse, say for example, it is a principal purpose test or principal purpose test along with SLOB, that is a simplified limitation of benefit, or there is a detailed limitation of benefit. Say for example, India opts only for PPT and Singapore opts for PPT and SLOB. Now there is a mismatch. Now, if there is mismatch also, wherever the article of the MLI uses in place of or in absence of, that will apply even if there is an incompatibility. So now these are the quick snapshot of what we have so far discussed: entry into force, cover tax agreement, reservation, notification, and entry into effect at different stages. Now this is the broad structure of the MLI, and I will just not take time on this because we are really running short of time. So these are one can read this in the MLI basic convention of which is available on OECD. Okay, what all it covers. And as I have mentioned in the slide, the blue mark is the minimum standard. The red mark is something where India has a reservation. So now let us come to some practical case studies and illustration. Now there is one Article 4 under the MLI. Now, as we all know, under the Article 4 of the existing treaty, which deals with the residential status. Now we all know that for individual, there is already a tiebreaker rule, that if today I am a resident of both the countries, say one country because of the birth, one country because of stay, then there is a tiebreaker clause which says that where is my habitual board, where do I regularly do my business, where is my personal assets more located, or my personal relationship. Now there was nothing for a corporate or for non-individual entity. Now typically in a lot of our treaties today, you have a reference that of a place of effective management, but it may still be possible, okay, that today say US will tax a company which is incorporated in US because of incorporation, India will say that, look, because the place of effective management is in India, that company is a resident of India. And therefore, there is a dispute between both the countries. Now, to address this dual resident entity, Article 4.1 of the MLI suggests that wherever there is a dispute and a person which is not an individual is a resident of both the states, then the competent authority of both the states will endeavor to decide as to, for the purpose of treaty, the person will be a resident of which country. They may consider effective management, incorporation, and similar criteria as they deem fit. And they may also agree that if we both are not coming to an agreement, we will deny them treaty benefit unless we agree that, okay, despite we coming in disagreement, let us give a specific benefit to that person. Okay, so that is insofar as dual resident entity is concerned. Now let us take a case study. Say for example, there is a Indian company and there is a FCO. So if we say that Indian company is held 100% by the foreign company, which is a resident of state F, and it has to pay dividend. Now let us deliberate as to, can today Indian company, let us assume on a fact pattern, is a resident of India as well as state F, and F company is only resident of state F. Now, is there a need to go to competent authority? Okay. Now, I would address, insofar as dividend is concerned, my reply would be this: that insofar as India is concerned, I have to withhold tax on dividend. So it's my withholding tax obligation. Now, today, if FCO is giving me a tax residency certificate of state F, it is claiming the benefit of state F, then in that event, okay, I will not see anything else. So in a case where I am dealing with only one person, okay, and who is giving me a certificate, it's a tax resident of a particular country, as a deductor, whether my poem is in India or in state F does not make a difference. Now let us just take a second example. Now here it's a reverse situation, okay, that today, say F company may be a resident of state F and state M both. Now again, let us apply the mind that what is a change which MLI does. Now even in this example, though at first brush it appears that one may have to check something, but I would put it this way, that again, insofar as India is concerned, see, Article 4 really applies when amended by MLI. If India also says that F company is a resident of India and state F also says it's of India, then we both have to decide. Now today, if there are two separate countries fighting for the residential status of F company, today as a deductor, again, I'm not concerned. Now today what will happen, if today I get a TRC, a tax residency certificate from state F, I will give the benefit of state F treaty. In fact, I may not be aware of any other claim also of state M at all. So now just to summarize in next 5-7 minutes, because the time is really short. So there are two main concepts otherwise in which MLI changes. One is a preamble. So as we all know, there is a preamble to the tax treaty, that where both countries have come together to eliminate double tax for economic development, etc. So now under the treaty abuse provision at Article 6 of MLI, there is three prolonged approach to address treaty abuse. One is that have a clear preamble that tax treaties are not for the purpose of creating any opportunities for non-taxation or reduced taxation through treaty shopping. Then there is a principal purpose test, and there is a limitation of benefit. Now in lot of existing treaty, LOB is already there. Now India is a position, preamble is there, but PPT India has opted only as an interim measure, and as India has taken a view that I will come out with an LOB in due course which will apply. So today India wants PPT plus LOB, but PPT is only an interim measure. Now after the preamble is amended, this slide just capture that how. So wherever say for example Singapore and we did not agree on the preamble, therefore even if there's a mismatch, it's a minimum standard. Therefore this words will be added now, intended to eliminate double taxation so and so by taking indirect benefit of the by giving indirect benefit to resident of third jurisdiction. Now insofar Indo-Mauritius is concerned, since Mauritius is not notified India, my India-Mauritius preamble will not come into effect. Now what is the principal purpose test? Again, it is really very what shall I say, very interesting concept of principal purpose test, because really now our role is now widened. that today if you're giving benefit to any person, then you have to ensure that that person, a non-resident, is not taking a benefit of treaty by treaty shopping. So let us read this. Notwithstanding anything, any provisions of CTA, so it's a non-option clause, a benefit under the CTA shall not be granted if it is reasonable to conclude, having regard to facts and circumstances, that obtaining that benefit was one of the principal purpose of any arrangement that resulted directly and indirectly in that benefit, unless it is established that it was in accordance with the object and purpose. So this is something which is now going to change a lot of thought process, a thought of which will require a lot of due diligence now for this 28 countries, which for which ML has come into effect with India from 1st April 2020. I'll just skip this slide because I would like to, and I will even skip this few examples because last 5 minutes I would like to devote probably on the 195 aspects. So this is a simplified LOB. Again, I will just say it's an objective criteria which one can read that, if today the non-resident is a listed company, it will get a benefit. If it's not a listed company, then the shares of that non-resident has to be held by 50% of resident of that country to give a benefit. Basically, these all limitation of benefit clauses only ensure that a person is not misusing a treaty by taking a benefit of a particular treaty with India, a resident of a third country. So insofar as dividend is concerned, one of the change which has made is that if there is any concessional rate of dividend which is applicable to a substantial or a significant shareholder, then the criteria is that the shareholder should hold that shares at least for a period of 365 days, so that there is no dividend stripping or dividend shopping. I would ignore this case study for the time being. Then there are some changes made in the P definition, which permanent establishment, where basically it is only three things which I will just summarize fast. Is that one, it says that it's not a minimum standard, so each country has a choice whether to amend or not. So it says that today there are some exemptions in the permanent establishment definition in the Article 5(3), where the nature of activities are, say, of preparatory auxiliary nature, say a warehouse storage, or only for the purpose of marketing or soliciting, etc. Now OECD identified that there are people who misuse this, and in some cases there are activities which, though may be a preparatory and auxiliary for some business, but may be very important for some other business. Say for example, an Amazon. Today for a traditional business, a warehouse may not be an important activity, but today for Amazon, warehousing, storage itself is a very important aspect of business, very important activity. Value may be generated because of the storage as well, and therefore now they have said that each of the activity should be preparatory and auxiliary. Second, they are saying that people used to anti-fragment. So today, if I had to do two activities, I would split the activities. I would get some other activity done by my closely related enterprise. So now they are saying that if there is a P in another country, then not only your own position, that is a position of a foreign company, but also if a foreign company has got any other connected enterprise in the other country, then, and if together they are in a place which together is a cohesive one business operation, it will be considered as part of P. And last is the anti-fragmentation for construction project, where they are saying that the time period also again of closely related enterprise will have to be considered for the breach of 90 days or 120 days period for construction P in the treaty. So I will skip all this. Now I'll come to the last 5 minutes. I'll take on this 195 obligation. So see, I have just given a very fast background of what is MLI. I would just say that we all now need to consider 28 countries, have that in my mind whenever we issue a 15 CB, whenever we give any advisory qua any party dealing with these 15 countries. So we have to consider the MLI and read along with it. We may resort to the synthesized text as a supporting document, but not as a primary document. Now, once you do all these things, the question comes that today as a deductor, as we all know, today we are mostly concerned with payers which are resident of India. As deductors, what is the care which we need to take? Now we all know that there are draconian provisions or consequences if I don't deduct tax, like disallowance of expenditure, raising a demand under 201, penal consequences, Indian deductor being treated as a resident. Now therefore, what do I see? Because see, today there are a lot of things like, how do I know today, for example, if suppose I am making, say for example, a payment to a Philippines, to say for example, I am making a payment to a Singapore resident. Now, do I know that the Singapore resident has set up shop in Singapore, though its shareholder are completely US? How do I know such things? Because how do I know that the principal purpose of the Singapore company or interposing a Singapore company or a resident in Singapore is to take the benefit of the India-Singapore treaty? I, as a deductor, only have the contract. I've got an invoice, I've got a PO, and maybe understanding of what the nature of activity is. If I know the nature of activity, the best thing which I can do is it helps me in identifying the nature of income for applying, whether it's royalties, FTS, dividend, interest, or it's business income. So today, I would only recommend this, that today, as of today, India takes a view that TRC obtained. Okay, one is I need to check whether a person who I'm making a remittance is really a resident of that country or not. Second is that person the beneficial owner of that income? Third, has that person, not used a treaty for treaty abuse, treaty shopping? So these are few things which I, as a deductor, have to exercise diligence. Now, though there are case laws which says that for withholding tax purposes, if a reasonable due diligence is taken, then probably I may not be treated as an assessee in default. Shom committee clearly says in the context of GAR that a diligence is required to be done by the tax deductor for sure. Therefore, I would only suggest that from today onwards or from April 1, 2020, whatever work we have done, as a chartered accountant, it is our obligation to do a reasonable due diligence, whatever we can think of. It may be like suggesting our clients that, okay, is it a old person who is established in that country? Is it a new entity which you are making a payment? What is the nature of payment? Is he the beneficial owner of that income in a sense that he is himself using that income, or is he just passing on income to someone else? Or and how do I determine the principal purpose? That has he done treaty shopping? Has he got was one of the principal purpose was only to take the treaty benefit, or there were commercial objectives, setting up a new company in a particular country? So I would only recommend that going further, we all have to at least mandatory take a TRC. I know there are judgments which says that TRC may not be mandatory for getting a treaty benefit. There are a couple of tribunal orders, but I would recommend that as a minimum we should ask for TRC, form 10F, and such as a declarations which we deem fit, where at least we as a deductor are taking adequate precautions, so that tomorrow if any penal or any other consequences happen, we can defend ourselves. Therefore, one may even consider, now that wherever you are entering into big transactions where there is high monetary value, you may even, relook at your indemnity clauses. Like today, you may take an indemnity from a non-resident that is agreeing or confirming some facts to us, which if found fault by the Indian Tax Department, in due course, he will forthwith indemnify us. So the way forward to conclude this presentation is that examine whether the DTAA has been modified by the MLI, see whether entry into effect has happened or not, cooling off period has happened or not. For the time being, my study says 28 countries are impacted, but one may check independently. If it is a cover tax agreement, what are the documentation as a deductor or as an advisor I need to take into account? Okay, whether I need to change the indemnity, whether I need to even take a no P declaration. If I have a no P declaration, but I somehow have a suspicion that there is some same entity of that group in India, maybe further dig and ask few questions. My only point is that we may ask questions as a deductor, we may not get all the answers. But asking questions, taking declarations, taking indemnity is the only thing which is going to safeguard us by showing that we have exercised necessary due diligence. So I think with this, I would just end my talk, and I would be open to any questions if time permits, subject to the organizers.
Thank you, Ronak. Excellent coverage of the subject. Yes, I must say. I also have my regional council colleague Arpit with me, and I would now request Arpit to carry out a formal vote of thanks. Arpit, over to you.
Amazing, Murtuza bhai. First of all, at the outset, let me congratulate you. We've come after a long time, 3 sessions in a day, and we've opened up this session with a big bang. I think if real in cricket terms, within the Sehwag style, beautiful sessions today. All the 3 sessions were amazing, and the verbal, non-verbal, Srivastav ji coming in with a dose of forensics, and Ronak bhai, really what a coverage you had today. all of this in just such a short time really is a very difficult.
Arpit, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
I think there's some problem with the network. So till the time he gets back, I think yes, 3 different topics. Unfortunately, see, like we had planned all these sessions.
Thank Mishra ji. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Arpit. Yes, Arpit, you're audible now. Yes.
Did you miss me in between?
Yeah, we missed you. Yes.
Okay,
You
okay.
went
So
up.
sorry. So again, I want to congratulate all these speakers for a fantastic job done and the coverage that they've done today. Really, it was a lot informative, and in terms of precision, they were absolutely to the mark. And webinars have to be on those lines, otherwise, to attract people's attention, span of attention is so small. So to keep all 200, so I think we had over 900 registrations today. So congratulations, Murtuza bhai. There are really people are looking up to these webinars, and 600 more people have really joined us today. So fantastic. I would request all of you to please submit feedback about today's webinars, and with your feedback it will keep us going on, and it will encourage all of us. In the meantime, I would also like to thank the logistic partners that we have, the WRC staff. Mishra ji, great job. Today you had conducted so many polls and so many questions, and made sure that the session was quite interactive with the non-verbal communication skills, verbal communication skills, and then now we've also got one more feedback done. I also like to thank Subhash. I also like to thank Ravi Arora ji for a great support in organizing these webinars, and recognize the support of WRC Chairman C. Lalit Bajaj, Vice Chairman Vishal Doshi, Treasurer Anand Jakote, and Secretary himself, who's giving end to end all of his time and energy and arranging all these webinars in a very short time. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for attending. Thank you all the participants. Please keep coming in good numbers so that we get this encouragement and the speakers feel good, because they are essentially looking at a computer screen and saying they don't know exactly what is happening. So your numbers is the only indication. As we said about non-verbal communication skills, these are one of the non-verbal communication skills that we should exercise. And please register and keep sharing your feedback so that we could do more and more. Over to you, Murtuza bhai.
Thank you, Arpit. Thanks a lot. And
Mishra ji, close
we
the
are happy to.
webinar if you've got enough feedback.
Yeah, we
And
are
can you
happy
share?
Yeah, just before Murtuza ji, thank you WRC, thank you Murtuza ji and Institute and everyone for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much for the same.
Thank you, Ronak. Thank you.
Mishra ji, close कीजिए poll. मिश्रा जी शेयर कीजिए उधर. So over Murtuza bhai, it's great, over almost 41, 45. 86% people have been really feeling good about these sessions today. We could do this one by one also, but it's a comprehensive thing for all the three. So this is a phenomenal benchmark actually.
Sure. Tomorrow we have 2 speakers and we'll do that. Let us do for both the speakers tomorrow.
Yes, so that
Nice
we can
idea.
capture for each of them. This is a great feedback, and thank you audience for participating. And we'll keep all of these things in mind and make sure that we do it in a more effective manner. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll improve it. Yes. Thank you.
मिश्रा जी हाइड कीजिए. Let's close the webinar. Recording upload करने पे लगा दीजिए please. Yeah, Murtuza bhai.
Okay. Thank you. See you all tomorrow again at the same time. 2 p.m.